Ladies and gentlemen, we shall begin. Hello, good morning everyone. I hope you have had a wonderful time yesterday at day one of our conference, and I also hope you enjoyed Warsaw in the sunlight. I hope you had a good evening and afternoon, and welcome and thank you for being here on time in the morning. We will begin shortly, but to begin with, I would like to recall that we are at the conference Building the Digital Future in Occupational Safety and Health, organized by the Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Policy and the Central Institute for Labor Protection, National Research Institute in Poland, in the framework of the Polish Presidency of the Council of the European Union. I welcome you all gathered here at the Kazimierz Górski PGE National Stadium. At the same time, I just want to remind you that the nearest emergency exit in case of emergency is to the left-hand side, the closest one. And I also welcome all the online viewers. The structure of the day is as follows. We have one plenary session, then we have two parallel sessions, so we will ask you to split. And we will then gather back for another plenary closing session. The two sessions for which you will have to make a choice is the potential of silver economy here in room Krakow, where translation will be provided, and occupational safety and health management and new forms of work in room Lublin A. But this is for later on, in case you run off, so that you know and you can prepare for the future. So here we are for our morning plenary session. The day will end at 1:30 for lunch. And now it is my pleasure to announce the first plenary session, the impact of digital transformation on the labor market, which the host of this session will be Professor Thomas Alexander. Please join me on stage. Yeah, please, a big hand. Professor Thomas Alexander is head of the Products and Work Systems Division at the German Federal Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, and it has been so since 2019. He has also served as Vice President of the International Ergonomics Association since 2021, earlier having spent 26 years at the Fraunhofer Institute for Communication, Information Processing, and Ergonomics. Welcome, Professor Alexander, and please go ahead. You may start the session.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think this makes things easiest for us to understand, for you to understand, and for the online participants also to understand me. So welcome to the session, and I'm glad you made it here. I really appreciate that, because Warsaw is such a wonderful town. I walked around myself yesterday evening, and I really enjoyed it. Beautiful weather. Thanks for the conference organizers to have that done here. And it was very wonderful, very friendly people here. I really appreciate that. Yes, yesterday we heard a lot about the topic of this session already, and the topic of digitalization and labor, and how it may influence each other, and how digitalization may affect labor in the future and our work in the future too. This session today morning, it will focus on automation and robotization with its challenges and opportunities. And it's true that competency requirements are evolving, and that is really increasing the importance of digital skills for all users, for employers, and of course for employees as well. Remote working is becoming more and more popular, which affects the employment structure, and there are many other challenges which come along with digitalization. And we will hear about this from different perspectives in this session. I'm really looking forward to the speeches, the pitches, and of course the discussion in the end. So I would like to ask my panelists to join me here on the podium. So the first one is Dr. Piotr Ostrowski. I'm sorry for my bad pronunciation, just come here. Second one is Xabier Irastorza. It's difficult for me to change between different pronunciations. Please come. Miss Marina Zanchi, please. And the last one is Dr. Grażyna Spytek-Bandurska. So thank you very much. Have a seat. And I don't want to spend any more time with introductions. I would like to introduce the first speaker here, Dr. Piotr Ostrowski. He's president of the All Poland Alliance of Trade Unions. And he holds a doctorate in sociology. He joined trade unions back in 2001. And he has served afterwards 2 times as member of the Presidium and the Council of OPZZ. Since 2018, he's been also vice president of the All Poland Alliance of Trade Unions, and in November 2022, he was elected as a titular member of the General Council of the International Trade Union Confederation. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation for this panel. And in my presentation, I would like to focus on aspects of digitalization that are crucial from the perspective of trade unions. As you will see, there are a number of links between digitalization and labor markets. Let me start with a short introduction to our Confederation of Trade Unions. The All Poland Alliance of Trade Unions is the largest trade union confederation recognized as a representative at the national level. We are full members of the Social Dialogue Council here in Poland. The OPZZ is also the member organization of the International Trade Union Confederation at the global level and the European Trade Union Confederation at the European level. I would like also to welcome Giulio Romani, who is the Confederal Secretary of the ETUC, our confederation at the European level. As you see at the presentation, we have 7 branches, so we are consisted of seven different branches. So we are represented in all economy in Poland. A question we try to answer is whether digitalization is a genuinely new phenomenon or just another phase of technology-driven labor market changes. In general, the processes of digitalization are complex, also due to the way they penetrate all aspects of work, how we work, where we work, and on which basis. At the same time, the impact of technological developments on work are nothing new, as we know from history how the technological innovations in the 19th and 20th centuries affected workers. When we talk about the impact of digitalization on the labor market, we can distinguish at least 3 ways this can happen. Each of these ways affects labor markets in a different way. Let's start with automation or automatization, perhaps the most debated aspect of labor market transformation. The concept of automatization assumes that some or all human inputs to the process of creating goods and services is being replaced by either machine or software input. Another phenomenon where the application of digital technologies is at the core of operations is platform work. We all see around us persons working for platform companies. What we don't know, however, is how these workers are assigned their tasks, where do they get their equipment, and from who, and who is supervising them. The third aspect of digitalization is so-called digitization. This phenomenon entails the process of converting information from a physical format into a digital one, and vice versa. The Internet of Things, for example. This aspect of digitalization is relatively least explored. Now I would like to briefly discuss how digitalization affects contemporary labor markets. Such considerations drive our trade union actions. First, the most general point is that digitalization is not a unified process across branches or sectors of economy. There are sectors like manufacturing or transport which are more affected, whereas others are more resistant to digitalization. Further, data show that digital skills are strongly positively associated with education attainment, and thus we can talk about digital skills gap. Similarly, we can talk about such a gap when the age is taken into account. At the outset, these individuals will be vulnerable to structural changes in the labor market. One important aspect of the digitalization of work is that it does not destroy existing jobs altogether. Rather, it impacts some tasks within occupations. Such tasks may disappear, may be changed, or may be newly created. A major concern also for trade unions is that some jobs will disappear completely. Such jobs are considered by high routinization and repetition of tasks associated with primary occupations. And finally, we should emphasize that digitalization also creates new jobs. Also, this leads to the conclusion that digitalization means several simultaneous processes happening in the workplaces and labor markets. However, it impacts vulnerable workers more than others. The main challenge, as we see, is to guarantee that the modified and new jobs are offered with the same quality. Let me briefly discuss the situation regarding digitalization in Poland. Based on international surveys such as Eurobarometer of 2024 and 2025, we can see that Poles' perception of challenges and advantages related to digitalization is mixed. Around a third of them indicate that they have some or large skill gap when it comes to the AI. Less than 1 in 5 respondents from Poland stated that they are afraid of losing their jobs to artificial intelligence. At the same time, the vast majority of Poles is aware of risks that digitalization of the labor market can bring about. The shares of respondents who agree with the particular statements are relatively similar for Poland and for the EU27 average. Apart from the risk of displacement by robots and the AI, and the positive impact of digital technologies in workers' safety and security, Poles seem slightly more optimistic regarding digitalization of the labor market as compared to the European average. But still, the scale of concerns is significant. How do we work? First, as a trade unions, we aim to organize workers and reach out to the areas of the labor market which are difficult to unionize. Thanks to the innovative approach, we were able to approach food delivery couriers so that they could establish a union in their company. There is still a long way to go, but this success is a signal that the presence of trade unions is possible even in such companies. Secondly, we are active at the European level, and this takes place mainly through the European Trade Union Confederation we are a member of. We call for similar standards in all EU member states. We work on the EA Act and Platform Work Directive. When it comes to the EA Act, it regulates the use of the AI in the workplace. Also, it requires employers to inform workers if the AI is used in the workplace. When it comes to the directive on platform work, one of the biggest victories is that platform workers are workers. Also, the directive includes regulation of algorithmic management and recognition of trade unions and the need for collective bargaining in the platform sector. There are other initiatives by the European trade union movement, such as proposal of the directive on algorithmic systems in the workplace or on the right to disconnect, which aim to fill the gaps in regulating digital domain of labor markets. It is very important to state that as the Trade Union Confederation, we do not oppose digitalization of the labor market. However, we call the government to implement the industrial policy strategy that includes digitalization. And there are out 3 expectations related to it. Firstly, we must be prepared with a full involvement of social partners in the framework of social dialogue. Secondly, we want to see the strategy which is not isolated from other areas of public policy. And thirdly, we expect a just digital transition. We have to be sure that no one is left behind in this process. All this brings me to the conclusion that what we need is a comprehensive framework that would lead to actions of all interested parties, including social partners in particular. Let me conclude with the outline of our vision, what digitalization can bring about to our societies and economies in positive terms. Firstly, digitalization may be a driver of a positive change, as it might improve skills and include into the labor market. Secondly, technology can serve workers, and this may happen through the reduction in monotonous and routine jobs or tasks. Thirdly, in digitalization of the labor market can lead to general improvement of working conditions. If possible, workers should have personalized work schedules, a right to disconnect, and in result, a better work-life balance. And fourthly, automatization of work could also lead to shorter working hours, as a part of our work would be replaced by technology. Summing up, we are facing a fundamental question at this moment: how to ensure that the whole society benefits from digitalization, and the benefits of introducing new technologies are not captured only by business. Why shouldn't we think about new ways of sharing the benefits? All this requires a social dialogue which is strong at all levels: company, sectoral, national, and European. The successful examples of transformations in Europe show that they are just only when workers are properly represented. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for that very good and very interesting and important presentation of yours. We'll handle it the same way as we did yesterday already, so that means please keep your questions in mind till the end. In the end, we'll have a panel discussion and then we'll open it for all of you then. So that leads me already to the second presentation. The second presentation will be done by Mr. Xabier Irastorza, sorry for my bad pronunciation again. He's Senior Research Project Manager for ESENER at the EU-OSHA. He's EU-OSHA representative and Senior Research Project Manager there. His work focuses mainly on health and safety issues, including psychosocial risks in the workplace. He has been involved in several key projects, including the European Survey of Enterprises on New and Emerging Risks. And we're going to hear a little bit about this in the following, I guess, then. Yep. And his expertise also includes analyzing the impact of digitalization on workplace safety, with a particular focus on factors such as increased work intensity, data management, and new technology challenges. The floor is yours.
Super, thank you, Thomas. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone, for showing up so early today. I hope the session is very interesting for all of you. And before starting, I wanted to thank the organizers of the conference, the Ministry and CHOP for having us here today. It's been an amazing conference, and thanks to everyone involved in running it. We know that these good things don't happen by chance. Also to the interpreters, I can talk very fast. So if there is a problem, wave your hand and I'll try and slow down. And also happy birthday, Chop. You made a wonderful, wonderful party. So happy to be here. So as Thomas mentioned, I'll be talking about the ESENER survey today, the European Survey of Enterprises on New and Emerging Risks. I see many familiar faces that have been involved in ESENER in many different facilities and roles and ways. But we think it's always interesting just to have one slide, very brief, on the main methodological features of the survey. And I want to start by the research question of ESENER. I think it's always good to know, what is this survey trying to address? And the big question that we're trying to shed light on is how workplaces across Europe are actually managing health and safety on a day-to-day basis. So we've carried out 4 waves of the survey in cycles of 5 years, the latest one, 2024, which I'll be talking about later. We have, the survey is implemented over the phone, but since 2014, we've given establishments the option to complete it online, and we see that that share is increasing, particularly in some countries. We cover always, at least the EU-27, plus Iceland, Norway, and Switzerland has fully funded the participation of ESENER across all 4 waves. We interview over 40,000 establishments across all business size classes, employing at least 5 people, and all activity sectors. This is the change that we implemented in 2014. That was the second time that we carried out the survey, and we decided to adopt some methodological changes to keep the survey as a monitoring tool across time, and to be able to start building trends since 2014 on. The respondent on the survey, this is an important one, in an enterprise survey, who is replying to the survey? It's the person who knows best about health and safety management at the workplace. As you can imagine, this profile changes by size. So with the micro and the small, it is usually the business owner or a manager that replies. So we could really equate ESENER in micro and small establishments as an employer survey. But when we go to the medium or the large establishments, the profile changes. It's more of a technical respondent with a background on health and safety. The topics of the survey, 4 main ones, OSHA management, psychosocial risks, work representation, and the main drivers and obstacles to managing health and safety. And then, as I mentioned before, comparability is key. We can build trends since 2014, so we've got 3 observation points now in time. Just a brief one on how those 41,000 plus workplaces that we surveyed, they break down by country. We see Poland there. We interviewed 2,286 workplaces. You see 3 countries there in red. These are the countries where the national authorities increased the sample size. So they had this extra number of interviews, and in exchange for that, they could add 2 or 3 questions of national interest to the master questionnaire. Again, comparability. As you see, this is a very important point for us, and repeat it over the presentation. So let's go into some of the findings. And here I'm presenting the results on the main risk factors that are present at the workplace, as reported by the establishment. And we see the 3 years, 14, 19, and 24. You see that the number 1 and 2 risk factors are prolonged sitting and repetitive movements of hand or arm. I think it comes as no surprise to most of us that musculoskeletal disorders will be ranking first. I think it's interesting, though, to look at psychosocial risk factors, having to deal with difficult customers, patients, pupils. That's reported by almost 57, 58% of establishments. We see a sectoral pattern here, and it's really mostly reported, as everyone expects, in service sectors. So that comes as no surprise. And I also wanted to highlight time pressure. That's the 7th most frequently reported risk factor, but the average is hiding a very diverse picture by country. And in particularly the Nordic countries, this is much more frequently reported. Over 70%, 60% of establishments report time pressure to be the main risk factor. So through my presentation, I'll be mostly presenting results on countries, but on the average of the EU-27, but when the country picture is very diverse, I'll try and highlight those differences. Another one very important for us and for our stakeholders is to look, okay, what are the motivating factors for workplaces to manage health and safety, and what are the main obstacles? And I think the first idea to get from the picture is that drivers are more frequently reported than barriers, right? So we see on top the drivers, and it's usually, in most countries, fulfillment of legal obligation, having a legal framework that expect the workplace to actually manage health and safety. That's the main driver. The second one, meeting expectations from employees or representatives, we see very highly reported, particularly, again, in the Nordic countries. When it comes to barriers, we see the other side of legislation. 40% of establishments report the complexity of legal obligations to be a main difficulty. The share, it's quite stable, slightly decreasing, but here again, this EU average is hiding an extremely diverse picture. In some countries, it's reported by less than 10% of establishments, in others by more than 50. And what we see is that each wave, the perception changes. So we have a feeling that rather than complexity, it's actually changes to legislation that are driving this perception of complexity in countries. Over time, we see an increasing share of establishments that report lack of time or staff as a difficulty, and a decreasing one that report lack of money as an issue. So let's move on to digitalization and some of the issues and question items that we included in ESENER. And we wanted to highlight, comparing 2019 to 2024, some findings, again, that come as no surprise. There is an increasing share of establishments that tell us that they have employees working from home. That went up from 13% to 23%. I'm sure we all have different numbers and data, but for us, the message here is the trend. It's increased, and again, not a surprise. We were happy to see that when it comes to risk assessments covering those home workplaces, there's been an increase from 31% in 2019 to 48% in 2024. We also wanted to touch upon diversity at the workplace, and we have this question on whether the workplace has employees that have difficulties understanding the main language spoken at the premises. The shares are low, that have increased a little bit from 8 to 10%, but we're interested in the following question too. The establishments that report the presence of such workers, we ask them whether training is provided in different languages. The shares are still quite low. There's been an increase from 21% to 27%, but one would expect that these would be higher, but that's not the case. So I want to focus on these 5 items and look at 2024 and see what countries are reporting the higher shares for these, because as I said before, averages hide different realities. So when it comes to employees working from home, the average for the EU-27 was 23%, but we see workplaces in Finland and the Netherlands reporting these more frequently. Whether employees are consulted on working from home practices, this is very interesting for us, and it's something that we really want to ask about. The average is 77%, but higher shares in Slovenia and Lithuania. Risk assessments covering home workplaces, Slovenia and Spain would top the ranking here. Whether risk assessments are covering the use of digital technologies, Malta and Ireland, and again, Malta and Ireland as the top countries when it comes to providing training on routine use of digital technologies. By sector, it's information and communication, where we would have the most frequently reporting of all these items. Okay, a little twitch here. So focusing on the use of digital technologies, we included this question for the first time in 2019, and we see how we have 2 digital technologies that many would argue why we included in the questionnaire. PCs and laptops. When we were testing this question with establishments across many countries, sectors and size classes, it was clear that we needed to include these 2. So you see the high reporting of them, over 80%, and then we have slightly or very more sophisticated technologies that are less frequently reported. Over time, we've noticed an increase in the share of establishments that report the use of wearable devices. And then we have a new question on machine systems and computers that use artificial intelligence to perform work tasks, which is reported by 7% of establishments in the EU-27. And I think this links to the presentation we had yesterday afternoon about how reporting of the use of AI is very different by establishments as opposed to the shares that we would get from workers. Only 4% of establishments report using none of these technologies, which is not surprising, bearing in mind that we ask about PCs and laptops, or majority of them would report the use. But what is very interesting for us is, okay, we ask establishments, you're using these technologies, is there any discussion about the impacts that they might have on the health and safety of the workers? And we see that in 2019, only 24% of establishments reported having that discussion. There was a disconnect between digitalization and health and safety. Establishments were not making that link. We see that in 2024, there's been an increase, 11 percentage points. This is a trend that we're not surprised to see. We can discuss and see whether it's enough, whether it's higher, whether it's lower. But it's a trend that us, before launching this wave of the survey, we were expecting that there would be an increase. So in a way, we were pleased to see that. This share across the EU, how does it pan out by country? And we see how in countries like Lithuania, Malta, it is these discussions are reported to happen more frequently than in other countries. So again, an EU average that is hiding a very diverse situation. Across sectors, education, information and communication, and financial and insurance activities will be the ones reporting most to hold this discussion about the impact of digitalization on health and safety. And then we have a question on the risk factors. Okay, establishments are telling us that they're using digital technologies. What risk factors are linked to the use of these technologies? And we see that, again, number 1 and number 2 are prolonged sitting and repetitive movements, followed by increased work intensity and information overload. These are, again, the EU27 averages. I thought it would be interesting to look at the top countries reporting these shares, and we see how, for instance, for prolonged sitting, the EU average, which was 52, 53%, actually in Austria it goes up to 67%. Repetitive movements all the way up to 64% among establishments in Cyprus. Interesting to see in Germany how increased work intensity and information overload is actually an issue for more than half of our German sample. So again, I think it's as good as it is to look at the averages, it's always good to shed light on the country differences and then have the chance to discuss with national experts how these results coincide or not with their own sources. So where are we now with ESENER? We published our first findings report. This is a short descriptive report, 8-10 pages, looking at the main findings of the survey and comparing them with the previous waves. We are launching very soon a study, an in-depth qualitative study on mental health and digitalization. We are actually going to interview again establishments that were surveyed last year in 2024. This time we're going for face-to-face interviews at the workplace with both manager and worker representatives who will be looking into psychosocial risk factors linked to the digitalization and their impact on mental health. We should be having results by the end of next year. This is a long, big project, but we're really looking forward to it. So we're working on the overall report. That's the flagship publication of the survey, and then the data visualization on our website. You can play with the data in all different languages, and you don't need to be a stats expert just to download graphs, charts, and maps. So we should be having that by the end of the year. And then dissemination, we're here, happy to share the findings. We'll be doing that also together with our network of focal points, going to different countries and sharing the results, and then participating in scientific conferences too. My conclusions, last slide. We see an increasing use of digital technologies. Again, no surprise, but the survey is clearly picking on that. Hybrid work, remote work, teleworking. But we're very interested in seeing how workers are consulted and involved, whether risk assessments are actually taking care of these issues, and whether training is being provided to workers. The link to health and safety at work and increased awareness. Again, up for discussion. Is it enough? Is it too little? What were we expecting? But the trend is clear. The risk factors linked to digitalization, very interesting, MSDs and psychosocial risks. And then don't forget that we keep working on ESENER and our follow-up study on mental health. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving us that insight really into the situation in Europe and how it looks like. And I'm happy to have you in the discussion afterwards then. Thank you. And this leads us to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Marina Zanchi. She's Director of European Health and Digital Executive Agency, where she became the director back in 2022. And she joined the European Commission in 1992 and served as head of unit in various positions in the Directorate-General for Research and Innovation. And there's plenty of more information here about you, but I don't want to spend any more time, and just go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. In fact, I joined the Commission many years ago. So many thanks for the organizers of this extremely interesting event. I was here yesterday and I was very interested, I followed very interested presentations. And I'm very glad you invited HaDEA, which is this new agency, to present the funding programs that we manage in the agency, and they are very impactful for the subject of the discussion today. So I would start, if you allowed me, to say a few words, since I mentioned it's a very new agency, about who we are and what we do. We are an executive agency. What does it mean? It means we implement the funding program of the Commission in different fields. And we were created during the pandemic COVID-19 and because of the COVID-19. Why? Because the Commission and all member states noticed that there was a need. I mean, the system, the national health systems were fragile. And there was very important to work together and to invest in research, to invest in supporting the national health systems, and to modernize them. And modernization goes together with digitalization and with the innovation. Our mandate is pretty clear, but very vast, as you can see, because in the title you see health and digital, but in reality we cover also other areas, which you will see in the presentation are also interlinked. So food safety is part of our mandate, as well as industry, space, and many specific programs on digital. I go very fast, I don't go into details, but just to show you the 5 big programs, and you will see the budget, it's under responsibility. And the subject of today is very much dealt in the pillar of health, both research, but also supporting, as I said, to the national health systems, and the specific programs dedicated, again, in research or infrastructure supporting in the digital strand. I just wanted to give a glance at the budget. That's investment of the European Commission in these fields. We received a mandate of 20 billion over the 7 years of multi-annual financial framework. As you see, very well divided and balanced. Everything which is orange, yellowish is dealing much more directly with health. The other part is more on research on digital or deployment of digital infrastructure, and also connecting Europe facilities. And it's combined, it's really also to support the the healthcare workforce in the hospital, which was very evident during COVID that the European Commission needed to give added value. Now, that was a very brief presentation, just to say we are very young, we were born in 21. But I would like now to zoom a bit in the programs much more related to the subject of these discussions. The first one I want to highlight is a program which received an extremely high budget at the beginning of COVID, meaning during COVID. This program, EU4Health, existed also before, but just to give you the difference, the investment of the Union was about 500 million over 7 years before COVID. The new program received 5 billion over 7 years, so you can judge yourself the real willingness of the European Union to invest in this field. Now, I would like you to concentrate more on the two. The program is dealt with this five in reality strands. 4 are very thematic. As you can see, one is crisis preparedness, but more related to the subject of today is the number 3 and 4, the health systems and healthcare workforce, and one specifically dedicated to digital transformation and AI and application to AI. Cancer is a cross-cutting strand. And there, it's very important to see that we invest in particular 3.8 billion are managed by HaDEA, really on these 5 main strands. And another program, but this I'm pretty sure you're more familiar, because this program is a very old program. The first framework program, Horizon, now it's called Horizon Europe, the first one was first framework program, was created in 1984. So it's a program very well known. It's the biggest research and innovation program in Europe, because the total budget now is 93.5 billion, so it's a real strong investment, and it's covered in different pillars. They have 3 pillars, but HaDEA is responsible to manage pillar cluster 1 and cluster 4. Cluster 1 is a series of important research dedicated really to health, all health, a lot about prevention, but also to have innovative system to prevent, but also innovative tool dedicated to health. And it's interconnected, and there are many projects that are working in parallel, or one project that start on basis of the results on another project with a cluster 4. And cluster 4 is specifically related to digital, but also the industrial applications. And you will see, I mentioned industry because it's very important materials. You know, it's one of the priorities as well of the Commission. When we are talking about innovative tool, AI, and so on and so forth, we need raw materials. So HaDEA is also responsible for specific projects to find innovative solutions, but also to find advanced material that can take the place of the raw material, which became more and more rare. And for this, now we are in the middle of this process, and I will give you afterwards some numbers, so you will see how many projects we manage. And the third program, which is really focusing on digital, it's a program that the Commission wants to develop and deploy new digital technologies and promoting the uptake of the advanced digital skills. And skills, it's one fundamental issue, and we fund lots of trainings, lots of coaching, because you can have innovative tools, but what is most important is that the health workforce knows how to use these tools. And this is a big gap that we notice in our European communities, and more need to have advanced trainings, advanced coaching, because we notice as well disparities between member states. And for us, the accessibility to the new machinery, to AI, must be equal in all Europe. And unfortunately, we are not yet there. But that's why the Commission is investing a lot in this kind of specific training and specific coaching. In particular, we focus to the young generation, because young generation and the young, I would say, medical doctors, which become more rare recently. You see, we work with this objectives, specific objectives. They are not all managed by HaDEA. We manage artificial intelligence, and yesterday as well, we were talking a lot how the work will change in the hospitals, in the healthcare community with the introduction of artificial intelligence. The advanced digital skills is one of our main topics, and we have specific calls for proposals in this topic. And also, it's very important, the deployment and best use of digital capacities and interoperability. Now, these are the main three programs that they are working in synergetic way in order to have a real impactful approach in that field. Now, these are the programs, but I would like to share with you some data about the budget involved and the number of projects, the kind of projects in this field. And I will start with the first program that I was mentioning before, the EU for Health. These programs of, I said, started with 5 billion, now HaDEA is managing 3.8, and after a revision of the multi-annual financial framework, it went a bit down to 4.4. We work with two instruments, grants, but also public procurement. And talking about grants, there are 8 big grants ongoing, and the amount invested is almost 23 million euros. What I like to share with you is this important joint action that we call HEROES. What does it mean, joint action? Joint action is directly an amount of budget invested directly to member states, authorities, in order to focus on a specific need, and in this case is the need to reinforce the healthcare workforce, and they collaborate together. Here there are 19 member states, and you see Poland is part of this big action, in order to exchange best practices, in order to, as I said before, to avoid to have two Europes, to have the same accessibility to the health systems, wherever you are living in Europe. The amount for this specific joint action is 7 million, so it's an important one, and it just started very recently. Last month, there was a big meeting about the best practices exchange, and they concentrated exactly on the issues we are discussing here now. So there was a recognition that the digital transformation allows the integration of AI in the public health systems. And this leads to what we discussed and frequently the telemedicines, the e-prescriptions, the patient-centered care, which is a very European principle and very important for the European Union. But we want to have as well innovative and non-invasive diagnostic tools. And that's why, and this I connect to the other program, it's very important, the research in this field. So this one is more deployment, is more this program, more an exchange of best practices among practitioners, for example, in this case. We provide as well, as I mentioned before, trainings, coaches, etc. But we work as well on the basis of the results of the projects that we have in the other program called Horizon Europe, which is a research innovation program. Now, going to an example of tenders, as I said, there are also tenders. We manage as well tenders in this program. There is the Health Union Fellowship. Again, a new result because it was starting only in December 2024 with more than $1 million investment. Again, to design how to best equip the healthcare professionals and practitioners with the skills, with the right skills, with advanced skills, with the expertise, and with the right tools. And again, all over Europe. And this is particularly focused for mid-career professionals and junior professionals. And then the last example, Horizon Europe. Here, as I said, there are projects on research. You can find a lot on the portal of our HaDEA agency. But the numbers I wanted to share with you. So we are just in the middle of the mandate, but we already invested over 600 million in research for improving the technologies and the digital solution for health, and very much working on the personalized medicines. And once again, human-centered and personalized medicines. On the other strand, which is the cluster 4, we have 20 ongoing projects with an investment of more than 100 million, really specifically related to health data and to the devices for imaging and for early diagnosis, or more precise as well, diagnosis. This is a program, Digital Europe program, that really invests in digital skills, in advanced digital skills. So they created a real program focusing on that. And the budget invested is over 200 million, 209, with 49 grants ongoing. And you said I reported the Financial Times, because I'm very proud that one of our projects managed by HaDEA has been mentioned, and it's a new project that started now in January 25 in the Financial Times. These projects concern an amount of more than 12.5, 12.4 million euros, and is focused on preparing the healthcare workforce for the digital future. So really, we prepare graduates, young people, more than 6,600 professionals we are focusing to really coordinate and to address these digital advanced skills. The coordinator of this project is in Finland. This is my last slide, where I wanted to give a glance on all the programs and all the projects, and you can read by yourself the numbers, that are actively contributing to the European health data space. As you know, the regulation has been very recently approved in March, is extremely important for all of us, because it's allowed this exchange of data all in a safe way all around Europe. So before thanking you, I just leave you with this. If you want to know more about HaDEA or the projects we manage, all the links are there. So many thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Zanchi, for providing that overview about activities of the Commission and HaDEA, and for giving insights into the programs. Thank you very much. We have one more presentation, or one more speech here, and that will be handled in Polish. So I hope you have your machines ready, some of you at least then. And it will be presented by Dr. Grażyna Spytek-Bandurska, nearly probably, and she's from the Federation of Polish Entrepreneurs. She's an expert in labor relations, social dialogue, and the labor market at the Federation of Polish Entrepreneurs. She's a lawyer and political scientist with a postdoctoral degree, and thus she's a member of the academic staff at the University of Warsaw. Currently, on behalf of the Federation, she's a member of the Social Dialogue Council, the Labor Market Council, the Stakeholder Council of the Integrated Qualification System, and the Monitor Committee for the European Funds for Social Development Program. So the floor is yours.
Dziękuję bardzo. Witam Państwa serdecznie. Bardzo chciałabym organizatorom podziękować za zaproszenie. Pani dyrektor, też tutaj Państwu z Ministerstwa Rodziny, Pracy i Polityki Społecznej. Proszę Państwa, jest mi niezmiernie miło, że mogę podzielić się pewnymi wnioskami, spostrzeżeniami strony pracodawców, jeżeli chodzi o transformację cyfrową, te zmiany, jakie następują. Mam przyjemność reprezentować Federację Przedsiębiorców Polskich, organizację reprezentatywną. Tutaj razem z moim przedmówcą, kolegą, panem przewodniczącym Piotrem Ostrowskim uczestniczymy w pracach Rady Dialogu Społecznego. Jak najbardziej podkreślam i podpisuję się pod tym, że musimy prowadzić dialog społeczny, tak żeby te zmiany, jakie następują, były prowadzone w sposób zgodny z oczekiwaniami partnerów społecznych, bo to my jako pracodawcy czy pracownicy jesteśmy odbiorcami tych przemian, jesteśmy też wykonawcami legislacji, zmian prawa, jakie następują i też musimy reagować na te zmiany, przeobrażenia, jakie w otoczeniu następują. Przede wszystkim na rynku pracy, bo to jest szczególnie ważne, tak żeby tworzyć dobre jakościowo miejsca pracy i to jest zarówno wyzwaniem, zadaniem pracodawców, jak i pracowników. Proszę Państwa, z pewnością zmiany, transformacja cyfrowa, ale też i zielona, bo mówimy tutaj o tej transformacji bliźniaczej, są bardzo ważne, dlatego że to jest szansa na rozwój nowych technologii, na zrównoważony wzrost gospodarczy i z tym wiążą się pewne wyzwania, żebyśmy byli i krajem, i też Europą bardziej konkurencyjną na tym globalizującym się świecie. I oczywiście wiąże się to również ze zmianą i przyszłym innym modelem pracy. I to, myślę, jest bardzo ważne, aby partnerzy mieli świadomość, wiedzę i przewidywania, jak ten nowy model pracy będzie wyglądał, bo te zmiany są nieuchronne. My możemy próbować wyhamować pewne zmiany, pewne procesy, ale one i tak nastąpią, a jak obserwujemy, dzieje się to bardzo szybko. Więc proszę Państwa, nowy model pracy na pewno. Te zmiany, jakie następują, musimy się do tego turbulentnego otoczenia przygotować i też przystosować. Co jest ważne, to nie tylko technologia, ale też i świadomość, kształtowanie społeczeństwa informacyjnego. I myślę, że tu każdy z nas może to potwierdzić, że nie występujemy w tym świecie zawodowym tylko w roli pracodawcy czy pracownika, ale też jako obywatele. My musimy być wyposażeni w pewne umiejętności, pewne kompetencje w ten świat cyfrowy. Więc właśnie to jest kwestia budowania tego społeczeństwa informacyjnego w różnym stopniu i w różnym zakresie, ale to jest wyzwanie dla nas wszystkich. W związku z tym, proszę Państwa, nie ulega wątpliwości, że te przeobrażenia powinny następować w sposób racjonalny, w sposób wyważony i sprawiedliwy, aby wspierać regiony, aby wspierać sektory, zwłaszcza te, które będą najbardziej dotknięte zmianami, bo tutaj musimy podkreślić różnice, jeżeli chodzi o branżę, jeżeli chodzi o wielkość pracodawców i warunki, jakie mogą tworzyć dla swoich pracowników. I muszą też być pewne ułatwienia dla funkcjonowania wszystkich obywateli w całej Unii, czy też na całym świecie, bo procesy cyfryzacji, globalizacji, rosnącej konkurencji to jest kwestia wyzwań i problemów całego świata. Więc proszę Państwa, na pewno można powiedzieć, i to jest taki kluczowy, myślę, wniosek, że to oddziaływanie cyfrowej transformacji na gospodarkę i na nasze życie jest wielopłaszczyznowe. Możemy te zmiany analizować zarówno w tej skali globalnej, o której wspomniałam, ale również na poziomie konkretnego kraju. I myślę, że w Unii Europejskiej mamy różne podejścia, bo jest inne i tempo rozwoju, i poziom tego rozwoju gospodarczego. Inne są problemy i musimy też spojrzeć właśnie na płaszczyźnie krajowej, ale też konkretnego przedsiębiorstwa, jak może odnieść się do tych zmian związanych z cyfryzacją, czy też nawet w odniesieniu do jednostki. I tutaj już mówiliśmy o kompetencjach, o odpowiednim przygotowaniu i wykształceniu poszczególnych osób, a więc to jest też problem, wyzwanie jednostkowe. Więc proszę Państwa, te zmiany oczywiście wpływają istotnie na rynek pracy i na zatrudnienie, co wiąże się z różnymi postawami i ocenami tych zmian, zwłaszcza jeżeli mówimy o różnych elastycznych formach zatrudnienia, o zmianie tego modelu pracy, zmianie warunków i tu również moi przedmówcy mówili właśnie o kwestiach innego podejścia do wykonywania pracy, telemedycyna, e-porady. To jest tylko jeden aspekt związany z medycyną, ale przecież w wielu branżach te zmiany następują, czy to w produkcji związane jest to z automatyzacją, czy też w szeroko rozumianym sektorze usług. Czy też, proszę Państwa, ergonomia, tak? I kwestia podejścia do bezpieczeństwa i higieny pracy, ale do tego jeszcze nawiążę. Więc, proszę Państwa, różne oceny i postawy również z punktu widzenia pracodawców, bo musimy pamiętać, że świat jest zróżnicowany. Przedsiębiorcy też mają różne problemy, dzielą się na duże firmy, na korporacje, ale też i małe mikroprzedsiębiorstwa, które mają zupełnie inne problemy z wdrożeniem pewnych rozwiązań i poradzeniem sobie z dostosowaniem do tej zmieniającej się rzeczywistości. Podobnie jeżeli chodzi o branże. Mówimy o branżach nowoczesnych, zinformatyzowanych, ale też mamy branże tradycyjne, które nie mogą, mówiąc wprost, ucierpieć na tych zmianach, tylko też muszą mieć możliwości, aby gonić za tymi zmianami, za tą transformacją, która w bardzo szybkim tempie następuje. Więc proszę Państwa, jakie zmiany nas czekają? Była już mowa oczywiście o skupieniu się na kompetencjach cyfrowych. Oczywiście jest to bardzo ważne, aby radzić sobie z tą biegłą znajomością właśnie pracy z zaawansowanymi technologiami. Pojawia się wyzwanie ze sztuczną inteligencją, zaawansowaną analityką, nauką o danych. Te wyzwania są kluczowe. I jeżeli mówimy o rynku pracy, to nie możemy o tych zmianach, zjawiskach mówić na etapie zatrudnienia, ale już zdecydowanie wcześniej, kiedy kształcimy, kiedy szkolimy młodych ludzi, którzy dopiero będą wchodzić na ten rynek pracy. I tutaj, proszę Państwa, chociażby nawiążę do kwestii różnic międzypokoleniowych. Jeżeli spojrzymy na starsze pokolenia, to jest większa ta luka kompetencyjna. Musimy więcej wysiłku włożyć w to, żeby pracowników przygotować do pracy z nowoczesnymi technologiami. Natomiast jeżeli patrzymy na młode pokolenia, chociażby mam na myśli pokolenie Z, postmilenialsów, to są to osoby mówi się, urodzone już w tym świecie cyfrowym, technologicznym i chociażby korzystanie z nowoczesnych rozwiązań, urządzeń, programów jest czymś dla nich naturalnym. Ale, proszę Państwa, są inne wyzwania związane chociażby z odpowiednim dostosowaniem tych młodych ludzi do pracy, do warunków w tym środowisku zawodowym, w jakim przyjdzie im pracować. A więc mamy zupełnie inne problemy, jeżeli chodzi o ten proces dostosowawczy. Oczywiście ważny jest rozwój umiejętności miękkich. Proszę Państwa, mówimy o pracy na odległość, pracy zdalnej, pracy hybrydowej. To powoduje, że my też jako społeczeństwo informacyjne mamy problemy z komunikacją, z bezpośrednim przekazem poleceń, informacji też i wiąże się to z zupełnie inną odpowiedzialnością, pracą zespołową. Jest większa indywidualizacja pracy, większa anonimowość. My musimy sobie z tym poradzić. I też wiele opracowań pojawia się chociażby w temacie, jak pracować z robotem, jak konkurować ze sztuczną inteligencją, czy te rozwiązania nowoczesne mają zamienić pracę ludzką, czy mają być tylko wsparciem? To są tego rodzaju wyzwania, z którymi musimy się zmierzyć. I dla pracodawców tym bardziej jest to większe wyzwanie, bo muszą dostosować swoje zespoły do tych nowych warunków pracy. A zatem kwestia tych kompetencji, umiejętności miękkich myślę, że jest bardzo ważna. Oczywiście proces kształcenia ustawicznego, ciągłe, systematyczne nabywanie czy też uzupełnianie tych swoich kompetencji, umiejętności. I nie jest już tak, proszę Państwa, że wystarczy wyuczyć się danego zawodu i możemy przez całe życie pracować w danym zawodzie, może z niewielkimi modyfikacjami. Nie, trzeba patrzeć zupełnie inaczej na wielozawodowość, na wiele różnych kompetencji, na to, że praca będzie się zmieniała i również nasze życie zawodowe. Będziemy mieć lepszą i gorszą pracę. Stałą, może i dorywczą, sezonową, przejściową, uzupełniającą. Proszę Państwa, tych określeń jest dużo, ale co one pokazują? Pokazują, że ten rynek jest zmienny i my też musimy do tej zmienności i różnorodności się dostosować. Oczywiście była już mowa o tworzeniu nowych miejsc pracy, zanikaniu tradycyjnych. Ja tylko o tym wspomnę, bo rzeczywiście będzie zanik tych i coraz szybszy, proszę Państwa, jak obserwujemy, nawet sami jako społeczeństwo, jako jednostki, funkcjonując w otoczeniu, że zanikają te prace manualne, rutynowe, że pojawiają się inne zawody związane przede wszystkim ze światem informatycznym. Będą potrzebni specjaliści do spraw sztucznej inteligencji, menedżerowie do spraw zrównoważonego rozwoju, technicy specjalizujący się w robotach współpracujących. Też tym ważnym zjawiskiem będzie, czy już następuje, personalizacja pracy, a więc dzięki technologiom warunki i ilość pracy, ale też jakość będą się zmieniały i muszą być dostosowane do indywidualnych potrzeb czy też możliwości pracowników. Proszę Państwa, zrównoważony rynek pracy to jest kolejna kwestia, kolejne wyzwanie, z jakim musimy sobie poradzić, dlatego że musimy pamiętać, nie możemy dopuścić do wykluczenia cyfrowego. Mamy na rynku pracy zróżnicowane grupy szczególne, chociażby mam na myśli osoby starsze, a przecież mówimy o wydłużaniu aktywności zawodowej, mówimy o osobach niepełnosprawnych. Grupą szczególną na polskim rynku pracy są też kobiety ze względu na łączenie obowiązków zawodowych z rodzinnymi. Więc to są te grupy szczególne, wymagające też szczególnego wsparcia i pomocy. I proszę Państwa, nie mogą tylko pracodawcy brać na siebie te obowiązki. Musi być wsparcie ze strony państwa. Co zrobić i jakie stworzyć możliwości, aby te osoby były przydatne, były zdolne, gotowe cały czas do świadczenia tej pracy, żeby nie czuły się marginalizowane na rynku bardzo zróżnicowanym. Proszę Państwa, mówiona już tutaj była, wiele mówiono o pracy zdalnej. Ja podkreślę ten wątek, dlatego że też od wielu lat naukowo-badawczo zajmowałam się i zajmuję pracą zdalną, też z punktu widzenia społecznego. To jest, proszę Państwa, fascynujące. Ale dlaczego? My teraz rozumiemy, czy znamy pracę zdalną. Jak w 2014 roku realizowałam badania, czy na przykład pracodawcy, przedsiębiorcy są zainteresowani pracą zdalną, czy też niektóre grupy pracowników, proszę Państwa, nikt nie był zainteresowany tą pracą, mimo jej atutów, o których bardzo dużo się mówi. Dlaczego? Bo była czymś nowym, nieznanym. W tej chwili możemy mówić o innych modelach pracy. Dużo mówi się o pracy za pośrednictwem platform internetowych. To też może być coś nieznanego, obcego, na co my nie chcemy się zgodzić, bo zawsze jest pewna obawa. Ale proszę Państwa, ten świat cyfrowy i zmiany cyfrowe powodują, że my z tymi nowościami, sztuczną inteligencją, algorytmami musimy współpracować i wykorzystywać możliwości, jakie ta nowoczesna technologia nam daje. A więc, proszę Państwa, wiedza, którą musimy pozyskiwać z różnych źródeł. I myślę, że to też jest ważne wyzwanie dla pracodawców, żeby zdobywali tę wiedzę i dzielili się nią swoimi pracownikami. Dlatego tak ważna jest kwestia informacji, konsultacji, prowadzenia dialogu, żebyśmy rozumieli, jakie są przed nami wyzwania i związany też dobrobyt zarówno pracowników, bo są to pracownicy przyszłości, ale też i dla pracodawców. Ważne jest, żeby tworzyć właściwą atmosferę, warunki, dobre samopoczucie i zdrowie samych pracowników, chociażby poprzez też stosowanie technologii monitorujących ilość pracy i zapobiegających wypaleniu zawodowemu. Proszę Państwa, kolejna kwestia. Zmiana modelu zarządzania. Ja tylko krótko wspomnę. Tradycyjnie możemy mówić o takiej strukturze zatrudnienia w postaci piramidy. Klasyczny, tradycyjny model. Mamy u podstawy pracowników wykonujących prace proste, pomocnicze, średni personel i management, czyli prawda, ten szczyt, ta góra piramidy. Proszę Państwa, przechodzimy teraz w inny model, ja go określam grzyba. Co to znaczy? Że mamy jeszcze tę podstawę, tę nóżkę tego grzyba, a więc pracowników do prac prostych, powtarzalnych, ale ten kapelusz to tworzą sami specjaliści wysokiej klasy. Co oznacza to, że ten średni personel nam znika. Jak zagospodarować tych pracowników, bo nie wszyscy są zdolni do tego, aby nabywać nowe te kompetencje, umiejętności. I to jest, proszę Państwa, też wyzwanie dla rynku pracy, co zrobić właśnie z tą znaczną grupą pracowników. Jak zagospodarować? I tu chociażby wspomnę o pracach Rifkina, czy nastąpi koniec pracy ludzkiej, czy maszyny nas zastąpią i jaka też będzie w tym rola pracodawców, którzy muszą też mieć środki, możliwości finansowe, ekonomiczne, żeby sobie poradzić i tworzyć atrakcyjne, nowoczesne miejsca pracy. Proszę Państwa, mogłabym dużo na ten temat mówić, ale rozumiem, że czas biegnie, więc dziękuję bardzo i cieszę się, że mogłam chociaż w kilku zdaniach podzielić się z Państwa swoimi refleksjami. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much, Dr. Spytek-Bandurska, for your perspective on the topic then. I think we're a little bit behind our schedule, so, and I still am very interested in the discussion, but maybe it's a good idea to have the audience enter directly here, to give you the opportunity to ask our panelists for some questions or some more elaborated answers then. So are there questions? I'm looking around. That's your opportunity.
Well, actually, it's more like a short comment than the question. I would like to thank HaDEA for existing and its effort, and of course to its director. And as a personnel who is in the field of labor relations and risk management for 14 years, it was so thoughtful that you put also the space in the mix, because now as a crisis manager, I feel that if we fail the transformation, even the Europeans have the way how to escape our planet and move somewhere else. So very much thank you for that.
I think it's...
Can you hear? Yeah. So many thanks for thanking HaDEA, in fact, because being a very young agency, I think we have already a lot of successful stories. The space is there because it's part of research. And since we deal with materials, as I said before, research in material and in advanced material, it's part of the package, digital space and, innovative material. But also because health observations. So there is a link anyway with health, because by observing the health, for example, you can see for the problem of food culture, for the problem of plants. So there is a link. That's why it was not the theme of this convention, of this event. Otherwise, I would have spent more time to explain why all these areas have been put in the same agency. Because the idea of the Commission was to have a package of portfolios of projects, because it's more impactful to concentrate, to have more budget, concentrate on the same objective. And there is a fil conducteur, as we say in French. But many thanks for thanking HaDEA. Much appreciated.
Okay, more questions. Look around, everybody's still quiet here. Well, in between, I might have a question to Mr. Ostrowski then. So my question is, thank you very much for your presentation, and it provided a broad overview. But from your perspective, or from the trades union perspective, which is the most one or two pressing factors when it's about digitalization and the labor market? I would be interested in that.
Okay, thank you for that question. And I think that the main challenge, or the main aspect which is important for us, is that we need to still keep control over the processes. We need to remember that technology is invented by human beings, and we still have to keep an eye what's going on. We as human beings, how this technology is implemented, how it is used, how it is implemented to the labor market, to workplaces, to workers. And if we still have control over it, I think we can be positive. I think that the problem is when we lose this control over technology, and technologies, for example, the AI is going to rule itself. It could be dangerous, I think. So, of course, human beings, or the control of the people over technology, but of course with involvement of social partners. If we are talking about the involvement of technology to the labor market, to the economy, and to workplace, and also organizational health and safety.
Yes, thank you very much. I think that touches a topic which we had yesterday already, with this increased speed of technology development, of innovations and everything, and how could we keep pace with that to keep it really human-centered, because it's a technology. It's supposed to be, at least from my perspective, an assisting aid or a tool, and not good for the purpose of its own then. So that leads me to another more general question, probably to the whole podium here, if there's no other questions, but we have plenty of time, I think. And that is, talking about technology or digitalization, we heard in many presentations it's a driver. Is it a driver? So is it a push? Are we behind then? Are we leading really? Are we following technology? Or is it the other way around, that we pull technology to solve some things? What's your opinion about that?
Me?
No, the panel. The panel. Anybody who volunteers then?
Yeah, I can start.
Please.
Based on the findings of the survey, we see an extremely diverse picture when it comes to relationship with technology. I think we have many establishments that would really be followers and are trying really to catch up, but we do have a share of them that are really not only early takers, but developers, I would say. I don't know if you remember the slide where we were showing the shares of use of digital technologies by the actual technology as such. Some of them are really, really not very frequently used, less than 5–6%. But when you talk to the establishment, you really see a very different culture and approach, not only to digital technologies, but how they integrate them at work and how they, what I was making the points on, discuss the impact on health and safety. So we really have some great examples of establishments. They don't always have to be big. We even have some small players that are actually very, very active, and that the leader or business owner of that workplace is a very inspiring person who is very aware of not only technological developments and use them as a driver, but what we are, of course, very interested on, then what happens with health and safety. So they really have them in mind when designing the use of those technologies. So this is just looking into the results of the ESENER survey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Mr. Ostrowski, again.
I think this is a driver, but still we need to bear in mind that it is invented by humans still. However, I think it's a driver because this discussion about the digital gap comes from this very fast, extremely fast developing of technology. But I think that we think that we are behind because we recognize every day or every week some new issues, some new technologies, inventions which are coming and they are surrounding us, etc. But I think that to some extent it's very good. Also for trade unions, because there was a time in the history, a couple of months or couple of years ago, that we internally in trade unions, we are starting to think, why shouldn't we use technology to support our activities, our internal activities? For example, we introduced in our confederation a chat on our website, and we have chatbot, which is answering very simple legal questions. However, we are working now on upgrading it to include AI also to this chatbot on our webpage. So also trade unions, which usually are stereotypically are far behind in the history, are also thinking about how to use the technology to accelerate its actions and to be more connected to modern and contemporary circumstances. So why not?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Zanchi, yes, please.
We are developing innovation and developing new tools, so it's a driver in the sense, we really believe that if we want to have a union which is strong, independent and competitive, we don't escape. We are in the era of digitalization, digital transformation. Having said so, there are main principles in the union, which is the human-centered, which is the control. We are the first one to regulate the AI, because Europe started to think. So the tools, the new technologies are fundamental for Europe to be competitive and strong, but keeping under control, human-centered. And another thing is very important for Euro equity. This kind of tools should be available, accessible to everybody in Europe. So it's a mixture, driver under control, I would say.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to hear about the employers or
Myślę, proszę Państwa, że z punktu widzenia pracodawców technologie są bardzo ważne, dlatego że one przyczyniają się do konkurencyjności. Dla pracodawców jednak ta pozycja rynkowa i konkurencyjność są istotne. Jeżeli firmy, tak jak przedmówcy powiedzieli, mniejsze, większe, nie ma znaczenia, chcą być konkurencyjne, to muszą siłą rzeczy unowocześniać swoje procesy produkcji, muszą nadążać za tymi zmianami. Proszę zauważyć prosty przykład chociażby z dostępem do stron internetowych. Kilkanaście lat temu, przynajmniej badania w Polsce pokazywały, że stosunkowo jeszcze niewielu małych, średnich przedsiębiorców wykorzystywało do swojej działalności strony internetowe, czy żeby się zareklamować w formie marketingu, czy też jako też element transakcji. W tej chwili to już jest dziwne, jeżeli firma nie ma własnej strony internetowej, jeżeli nie korzysta z mediów społecznościowych, jeżeli nie korzysta z różnych rozwiązań technologicznych w zależności od branży. Więc siłą rzeczy, chcąc utrzymać się na rynku, firmy muszą stosować technologię. Oczywiście jest to uzależnione od branży. Jest to uzależnione też od wielkości, możliwości też finansowych. To jest bardzo ważne, bo nadal te nowoczesne technologie są kosztowne. Pracodawca musi mieć środki, żeby je zakupić, żeby wyposażyć miejsca pracy, żeby korzystać w swojej działalności gospodarczej z tych nowoczesnych rozwiązań. Nie tylko nabyć technologię, ale również mieć personel do obsługi. I tutaj, jeżeli chodzi o kwestie medyczne, posłużę się takim przykładem. Jeden z bardzo znanych szpitali w Polsce nabył, proszę Państwa, bardzo drogi sprzęt do prowadzenia badań wśród pacjentów. I proszę Państwa, problemem sporym tej dyrekcji było, gdzie znaleźć dobrych informatyków, specjalistów, techników, żeby potrafili nauczyć, tak, czy też uruchomić ten sprzęt i wdrożyć do codziennego korzystania, bo lekarze nie muszą mieć tej wiedzy. Więc to jest też kwestia, że my wykonujemy różne zawody jako pracownicy, ale w ślad za tym właśnie pracodawcy będą oczekiwać takiego uniwersalnego podejścia, że my też musimy korzystać z tych nowoczesnych rozwiązań, tak? Czyli też być tymi informatykami chociażby, jeżeli korzystamy z komputerów, z laptopów, prawda, z telefonii komórkowej, czyli musimy też mieć te kompetencje dodatkowe, bo nie będzie za nami chodził informatyk, specjalista, technik i nam pokazywał. To samo jeżeli chodzi o chociażby operatorów, o obsługę nowoczesnych maszyn, urządzeń. I to też dla pracodawców z kolei jest dodatkowy koszt i obciążenie, żeby nabyć nowoczesne technologie, wyposażyć pracowników w wiedzę, w te umiejętności i cały czas czuwać nad tym, żeby nie pozostawać w tyle, żeby unowocześniać i iść do przodu. Tak więc myślę, że z punktu widzenia pracodawców jest to konieczność, jest to ogromne wyzwanie, ale też i ogromne obciążenie. A też i czujność chociażby, proszę Państwa, nad bezpieczeństwem danych, nad właśnie tajemnicą też procesów technologicznych, nad też pozyskiwaniem wysokich specjalistów. Chociaż tu się pojawia pewna dogodność, bowiem internet, odwaga i niewielki sprzęt i już my jako pracownicy możemy świadczyć pracę na całym świecie. Nie ma ograniczenia przestrzennego i to też dla pracodawców jest atutem, że mogą sięgać po specjalistów z całego świata. Dziękuję.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we've got one more question from the audience here.
Yeah, the last one, I think. We need to go to the coffee. Thank you very much from the employer's representative. But I remember, in your speech yesterday, where you gave an excellent overview of what is happening in companies, that workers seem to be much better qualified in digital skills, AI use, than their bosses, than their managers. You gave an example that many workers are using generative AI, ChatGPT and other tools without ever being trained or given the official approval by their bosses to use these tools. So maybe it's the other way around, with all respect, that the managers, those who are managing companies, should realize that, okay, my workers are already, especially in white-collar jobs, are using AI tools a lot, but I don't have a clue what they are doing, and if this is allowed or if any copyright issues are violated. Do you remember? This was one of your issues that you raised. So maybe it should be the other way around, that the employers really need to realize fully what their workers are doing and to make better use of that.
That was a tricky last question, I must say. It is very much triggering these our discussions in the coffee break, I think. And I don't know, do we have any short responses from the panelists to that? Short responses,
to może ja spróbuję.
Short responses, please.
Myślę, że z pewnością są sytuacje, że pracodawca nie musi znać się na wszystkim, po to zatrudnia specjalistów, żeby byli lepsi od niego. I to jest dobry pracodawca, bo wtedy dba o swoją firmę. Myślę, że to jest bardzo dobry kierunek, ale z drugiej strony nie możemy funkcjonować w oderwaniu od otoczenia, chociażby otoczenia prawnego, od wymogów związanych z tworzeniem nowych przepisów, z bezpieczeństwem też danych. To jest, myślę, dla pracodawców bardzo ważne, żeby korzystać w sposób prawidłowy i bezpieczny. A myślę, że mamy z tym duże zagrożenia, ryzyka, jeśli chodzi o korzystanie ze sztucznej inteligencji. To jest też kwestia weryfikacji informacji, bowiem w mojej ocenie możemy korzystać z tych rozwiązań technologicznych, ale właśnie pytanie, czy my jesteśmy jeszcze mądrzejsi i potrafimy skorzystać z tej sztucznej inteligencji, czy też za chwilę stanie się odwrotnie i my zgubimy tę równowagę. A uważam, że nowoczesne technologie powinny być dla nas wsparciem, a nie nas zastępować. I proszę Państwa, wiele wyzwań, chociażby samojezdnymi pojazdami, samosterującymi, prawda, z obsługową, prawda, maszynami, urządzeniami, na ile to będzie bezpieczne i korzystne dla społeczeństwa. Natomiast oczywiście myślę, że pracodawcy, którzy będą inwestować w pracowników i zatrudniać tych specjalistów, tutaj nawiążę do właśnie tej kwestii tego grzyba, gdzie mamy samych specjalistów. To jest ten kapitał i to jest ta jakość pracy i przewaga, którą zdobywamy. Dziękuję.
Okay, so that was the employer's perspective. I think it would be very unfair not to allow the employees
just
famous last words.
Just one sentence to conclude. Yes, I fully agree. Workers are more important than bosses. Thank you.
Oh, wow. So, just to stop this discussion here before we're getting into the coffee break, take your questions with you. I think I'm nearly sure our panelists will be available during the coffee break and love to go on with that discussion. What is shown here is how broad this topic really is, how fast it is developing, and we all agree that it has to be human-centered. We have to keep in mind the skills, the competencies, and everything of the employers also, and the employees of anybody in there, that we really make the best out of these new innovations and technologies and make it possible and make it really and enable the development of these technology for all our best then. Thank you very much to the audience and to your panelists. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I guess it's time to begin. And also for this session, please have your headsets ready, just in case you may need it for translation. So welcome after the coffee break for our parallel session number 3, the potential of the silver economy. This session will be led by Mercedes Tejedor Aibar, who is an expert in occupational safety and health in Spain, affiliated with the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, Instituto Nacional de Seguridad y Salud en el Trabajo. With years of experience and dedication, Tejedor has played a key role in the development of policies related to worker health protection in Spain and at the European level. Mercedes, the floor is yours, and I wish you fruitful deliberations.
Good morning, dzień dobry, everyone. The ones that are seated here in this parallel session, and also the ones that are watching us online. Welcome all of you to this parallel session called The Potential of the Silver Economy. This session deals with a topic that is of interest to all of us, both as human beings, because we all want to be older and with a good quality of life, but also to the European Union as a society. According to Eurostat figures, in 2024, 20% of the European Union were older than 65 years old. And this figure in 2060 is going to be about 30%. This tendency places the focus on the so-called silver generation, both as potential consumers of products and services made especially for them, but also regarding the need to prolong the working life of that generation. It's in this respect where the digital technologies can be seen as both as an opportunity or as challenges for these older generations. As we will see in the different presentations today, we will see the pros and cons of this digital transformation when we speak about all the workers. So let me introduce the panelists of today. First of all, Dr. Rafał Bakalarczyk, well, welcome. Professor Jolanta Walusiak-Skorupa, Ms. Sarah Loriato, and Mr. Piotr Stronkowski. You are welcome to the stage, please. Let's start today with Rafał Bakalarczyk. He's a Polish social scientist, researcher. He holds a PhD in social science with a focus on public policy from the University of Warsaw. And he serves as co-editor-in-chief of the journal Senior Policy, and he serves as the director of the social research at the Institute of Senior Policy. He's also a member of the Expert Commission on Senior Citizen at the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights, and his research primarily focuses on the long-term care, support for informal caregivers of the elderly and disabled, senior policy, and social exclusion. Rafał, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to participate in this session and generally in this conference. As it was mentioned, my main field of scientific interest is elderly care, which is also the field that can be discussed and analyzed in the context of silver economy, and also in the context of technological usage. But today I would like to speak about some broader perspective on digital technologies in the silver economy building. Unfortunately, I'm not very familiar with speeches in English, so please forgive me. I'll try to. I would like to move to Polish and now, because it's maybe less stressful, and I could be maybe more precise in expressing some theses. I like to share with you. Więc może zacząłbym od tego, że sama koncepcja srebrnej gospodarki nie jest całkowicie, zwykle o niej mówimy w kontekście przyszłości, no coraz bliższej przyszłości, ale także sama koncepcja jest jakby zakorzeniona w dyskursie, w nauce, częściowo także w praktyce już od wielu lat i też sam ten koncept ewoluował na przestrzeni czasu. Także znalazło też to wyraz w agendzie unijnej ze strony różnych instytucji Unii Europejskiej. No, wyrazem tego właśnie był raport na temat srebrnej gospodarki z 2018 roku. Tam też wątki technologiczne się pojawiają i to nie tyle jako jakiś odrębny dział, ale także w kontekście bardzo różnych zagadnień dotyczących zdrowia, turystyki, transportu, także projektowania mieszkań, więc widać, że te wątki technologiczne, one nie są, jakby są obecne w bardzo różnych przestrzeniach, które składają się czy mogą się składać na taką srebrną gospodarkę. Tam też jest w wspomnianym raporcie próba zdefiniowania tej srebrnej gospodarki. No tutaj Państwo macie na slajdzie, więc widać, że chodzi tutaj zarówno o kwestie związane z produkcją, konsumpcją, także dystrybucją różnych dóbr i usług, tak żeby były one odpowiednie dla starszych odbiorców. I ważne jest też to, co zawiera definicja, że tutaj bierzemy pod uwagę zarówno te rynkowe, prywatne podmioty, jak i także publiczne instytucje. Na pewno ważne jest, by patrzeć na tą srebrną gospodarkę w kontekście zmieniających się demografii i takiego zjawiska jak podwójne starzenia się społeczeństwa, czyli tego, że oprócz tego, że coraz większy jest udział osób w starszym wieku, to jeszcze szybciej rośnie w strukturze populacji ten udział tych najstarszych grup, którzy też mają swoją specyfikę potrzeb inną niż osoby w tych pierwszych fazach jesieni życia. I także ma to odniesienie także kiedy myślimy o technologiach, to także ma duże znaczenie, ponieważ i nieco inne są potrzeby w tych zaawansowanych fazach starości, ale też inne są kompetencje i możliwości korzystania na przykład z technologii cyfrowych. Na pewno trzeba na to patrzeć w kategoriach tego wielopoziomowego zarządzania. I pytanie oczywiście, jaką rolę w tym takim wielosektorowym ujęciu powinny instytucje publiczne a jaką rolę prywatne instytucje odgrywać i także w kontekście technologii, znaczy na ile odpowiedzialność za pewną infrastrukturę, chociażby technologiczną, widzimy po stronie raczej też prywatnych podmiotów i adaptacji po tej stronie, a na ile jednak tutaj widzimy to jako odpowiedzialność publiczną. Ważne jest też to, co jakby na gruncie nauk o starzeniu, społecznych przynajmniej nauk o starzeniu, często się wprowadza takie rozróżnienie, że polityka wobec osób starszych i polityka wobec starzenia się. To znaczy, że my powinniśmy, ja przynajmniej tak myślę, że powinniśmy patrzeć na tą srebrną gospodarkę nie tylko w kontekście odpowiedzi na potrzeby osób, które już przekroczyły umowny wiek starości, ale także na cały proces starzenia się w życiu człowieka, w cyklu życia. I także tutaj technologie jako też czynnik, który może, nowe technologie czy technologie cyfrowe też jako instrumentarium, które może no, na przykład sprzyjać temu, żeby ten proces starzenia się był na przykład bardziej pomyślny, bardziej zdrowy, więc tutaj wchodzimy w obszar tej koncepcji healthy aging. Na pewno istotne jest to, żeby patrzeć na tych srebrnych konsumentów, srebrnych odbiorców, także z uwzględnieniem ich zróżnicowania wewnętrznego tej grupy, nie tylko właśnie wiekowego, ale także pod względem zdrowia, sprawności, sytuacji rodzinnej, miejsca zamieszkania, bo to też wpływa na to, na ile oni są na przykład podatni na wykluczenie cyfrowe, ale także jakie mają po prostu, jaka jest ich struktura potrzeb, którą przy pomocy nowych technologii także możemy zaspokajać. No i współcześnie o srebrnej ekonomii nie myśli się już tylko w kategoriach takiej jakby indywidualnej konsumpcji, że na przykład dany produkt, dana usługa jest, żeby była po prostu dostosowana do starszej osoby, ale też widzi się w kategoriach także tych kolektywnych odbiorców, czyli na przykład różnych usług dla firm czy organizacji, których końcowymi odbiorcami są także osoby w starszym wieku, więc tutaj ta koncepcja właśnie ewoluuje. Więc tutaj no, musimy się zastanowić, jak właśnie te różne elementy, które na tym rysunku no, tak uwzględniłem, jakie optymalne powiązanie znaleźć. Tutaj zwracam uwagę, że o ile sama ta srebrna gospodarka w pierwszej kolejności koncentruje się na seniorach jako odbiorcach, ale także ten wymiar srebrnych czy dojrzałych wiekiem pracowników, ale i przedsiębiorców. To jest też dość istotny aspekt także w tym raporcie, który przywołałem. Tam jest mowa o tym, że trzeba także orientować niektóre działania tak, aby wykorzystywać pewien potencjał i doświadczenie osób starszych, na przykład w zakresie przedsiębiorczości, też ten taki potencjał kreatywny, więc nie tylko widzieć jako odbiorców lub pracowników, ale także jako no, współtwórców tego docelowego systemu. Na pewno wątkiem, który jest ciągle obecny, przynajmniej w Polsce, to jest pewien poziom wykluczenia cyfrowego. Nie tyle wszystkich osób, o których tutaj, ze wszystkich tych grup wiekowych, o których myślimy, ale na pewno osoba powyżej 65 roku życia, a tym bardziej w wieku późniejszym część z tych osób jest wykluczona cyfrowa. To się może zmieniać w kolejnych latach, ale w najbliższym czasie z tym zjawiskiem musimy się mierzyć jako właśnie też no, pewnej bariery zarówno dla wykorzystania nowych technologii, ale też bariery w kontekście w ogóle funkcjonowania w obiegu gospodarczym i społecznym części tych osób, które no, coraz więcej, zwłaszcza po doświadczeniu pandemii, no, jest jakby nasycony właśnie technologiami, więc osoby, które są tu mniej lub bardziej wykluczone, no, mogą też napotykać bariery w zaspokajaniu bardzo różnych potrzeb społecznych i konsumenckich. Na pewno ta istotna rola nowych technologii jest w kontekście ograniczeń, bo tutaj powiedziałem o pewnych barierach, natomiast na pewno można widzieć duży potencjał nowych technologii w ograniczeniu różnych barier, jakie osoby wraz z wiekiem napotykają, na przykład wraz z rosnącym ryzykiem niepełnosprawności czy utraty zdrowia. I tutaj wydaje się, że ta rola jest tak istotna. Kolejny aspekt, który wydaje się tutaj ważny, to właśnie kwestia tych dojrzałych wiekiem pracowników. Wiem, że kolejne prezentacje będą bardziej szczegółowo ten temat podejmowały, więc ja tylko w tym slajdzie może na jedną rzecz bym zwrócił uwagę, że nawet jeśli w punkcie wyjścia myślimy o seniorach jako odbiorcach, czy w punkcie dojścia jako odbiorcach, to także z tej perspektywy istotne znaczenie ma to, na ile system produkcji, dostarczania dóbr i usług też włącza na przykład starszych pracowników, no bo te procesy, jeśli one będą włączały właśnie te osoby starsze, to także potencjalnie będą one mogą być przygotowane także do odpowiadania po prostu na konsumenckie potrzeby tych osób. Poza tym często w takim doświadczeniu nawet jest tak, że jeśli osoba starszy odbiorca jakichś usług, nie wiem, na przykład bankowych chociażby, też napotyka po drugiej stronie danej usługi osobę, która też nie jest bardzo młoda, ale jest zbliżona do jej wieku, czasami łatwiej jest przełamywać niektóre takie bariery komunikacyjne, więc ta kwestia pracownicza w tym wypadku i konsumencka, one nie są całkowicie oderwane od siebie. I jednym z takich aspektów, który nie dość często, mam wrażenie, jest podejmowany, czy akurat w kontekście tutaj dyskusji o srebrnej gospodarki, to jest problem tego, że coraz więcej osób jeszcze w wieku produkcyjnym, pracowników lub potencjalnych pracowników, ale właśnie w tym wieku bardziej już takim niemobilnym 50-55+, może ma też pod opieką, czy jest zobowiązana do wsparcia swoich bliskich w wieku podeszłym. To jest właśnie ten przykład na to, jak bardzo te szersze trendy demograficzne w kierunku podwójnego starzenia się społeczeństwa też rzutują na to, jak na pewien potencjał zatrudnieniowy wielu osób właśnie w tym wieku też okołoemerytalnym na przykład. No i wiele z tych osób jest zmuszona ograniczyć lub wręcz wycofać się z rynku pracy ze względu na bardzo intensywne, w różnych krajach to różnie wygląda, ale przynajmniej w takich krajach jak Polska, gdzie bardzo duża część opieki jednak opiera się na tych więziach rodzinnych, wiele osób nie może kontynuować do późniejszych lat swojego życia zawodowego właśnie tej ścieżki zawodowej ze względu na te obowiązki opiekuńcze, co także ma w dłuższej perspektywie wpływ na ograniczenia dla srebrnej gospodarki, bowiem te osoby, które przedwcześnie właśnie ze względu chociażby na opiekę opuściły rynek pracy i nie mogły ponownie nań wrócić, później są znacznie bardziej zagrożone także ubóstwem emerytalnym, kiedy już wejdą w wiek senioralny, więc także ich potencjał na przykład na rynku konsumpcji bardzo różnych dóbr i usług też może być ograniczony właśnie ze względu na brak chociażby środków, także kiedy już będą tymi byłymi opiekunami. Także wątek jest tutaj dość istotny i także technologie właśnie mogą odgrywać tu bardzo istotną rolę troszeczkę w łagodzeniu tego problemu, chociażby poprzez to, w jaki sposób one umożliwiają telepracę, pracę zdalną lub pracę w trybie hybrydową. To te badania, na przykład, które prowadziłem wśród opiekunów w czasie pandemii, pokazywały, jak bardzo dla części osób umożliwiło to, nawet takich, które wcześniej były nieaktywne zawodowo, wśród opiekunów osób starszych, jak wprowadzenie na szerszą skalę właśnie tego trybu hybrydowego lub zdalnego umożliwiło właśnie aktywność zawodową. Kwestie teleopieki, które nadal wymagają dalszego rozwoju i w Polsce jeszcze ciągle jest to w ograniczonym stopniu, ale to też pozwala częściowo pewne czynności wykonywać na odległość, więc uwolnić też potencjał zawodowy tych osób. Istotna rola nowych technologii cyfrowych w koordynacji opieki i też dzięki temu w sytuacji, w której na przykład zleca się usługi opiekuńcze zewnętrznym jakimś podmiotom, osoba bliska może w tym czasie pracować i łatwiej jest jej koordynować po prostu ten proces opiekuńczy rozłożony na więcej osób, no i też umożliwienie oczywiście pracy tym opiekunom formalnym. Więc tutaj na wielu poziomach widać, że po pierwsze te nowe technologie mogą wspomóc opiekunów formalnych, rodzinnych, znaczy nieformalnych i rodzinnych, ale także formalnych i tym samym też odblokowywać potencjał zawodowy części osób w różnych fazach życia, ale także właśnie w tym wieku 50+. I kilka jeszcze na sam koniec takich zagrożeń i wyzwań, które odnoszą się do tych technologii cyfrowych właśnie w kontekście cyfrowej gospodarki. No to pierwszy aspekt no to jest właśnie ten konieczność przeciwdziałania właśnie wykluczeniu i to nie tylko stricte cyfrowemu, ale często w ogóle dotyczącego różnych aspektów technologii. No i też wykluczenia informacyjnego, więc tutaj jakby ten zakres jest jeszcze szerszy, natomiast w ramach tego także ta kwestia wykluczenia cyfrowego się mieści. Też pewne obawy i trudności dotyczące używania nowych technologii wśród części osób starszych. Tutaj się pojawia nieraz takie pojęcie neofobii, czyli trochę takich obaw przed czymś nowym i dla części osób, zwłaszcza które nie miały kontaktu ze wcześniejszych fazach życia lub nie mają na przykład w rodzinie, nie wiem, młodszych osób, które z tych technologii cyfrowych korzystają, mogą być takie obawy przed czymś, co jest dla nich nowe i nie czuć się pewnie w tej rzeczywistości, nawet jeśli jakieś podstawowe kompetencje mają. Więc tutaj jest też ten aspekt, ja bym powiedział, taki mentalny i psychologiczny, który trzeba uwzględnić. Kolejna rzecz no to jest taka trochę obawa o to, że część podmiotów, które czy to na rynku właśnie tych usług cyfrowych, czy nawet innych usług i produktów, ale wykorzystujących technologie cyfrowe, może po prostu pominąć, znaczy uznać, że osoby starsze generalnie nie są wystarczająco istotnym segmentem z perspektywy rozwoju tychże instytucji, więc tychże rozwiązań, więc tutaj ważny jest właśnie umiejętne też zmienianie pewnej świadomości podmiotów, które kreują tego typu usługi i dobra. No i to takie nakładanie, kolejna sprawa to jest nakładanie się barier technologicznych i cyfrowych na inne wymiary wykluczenia osób w dojrzałym wieku. Więc to jest też w kontekście na przykład zarówno praktyki, jak i badań, przyjęcie tej takiej intersekcjonalnej perspektywy, w której także widzi się te różne wymiary, na przykład jak koreluje ryzyko wykluczenia cyfrowego i na przykład wykluczenia społecznego, czy wykluczenia związanego z transportem, z brakiem transportu w miejscu, w którym dana osoba mieszka. I ostatnie już dwa słowa. Więc kwestia zagrożeń w sferze cyfrowej, zarówno dotyczącej takiego cyberbezpieczeństwa, nie wiem, kwestia wyłudzenia danych, wyłudzenia środków, ale też na przykład jakichś pewnych nieuczciwych praktyk konsumenckich, na które osoby starsze są także poza sferą cyfrową narażone, ale ponieważ w sferze cyfrowej mogą być potencjalnie bardziej zagubione, więc tutaj ta podatność jest jeszcze większa. To by było, ponieważ czas już się skończył, więc to by było z mojej strony wszystko. Natomiast jakby były później jeszcze jakieś pytania czy komentarze, to chętnie odpowiem. Także dziękuję bardzo. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for helping us to look beyond the silver generation as just consumers. And surely at the end of this parallel session, we will have time to ask for some questions. Dziękuję. Now our next panelist is Professor Jolanta Walusiak-Skorupa. She's a specialist in occupational medicine and clinical toxicology. Her main areas of activity encompass various aspects of workers' health, including work-related diseases, with a particular focus on allergic respiratory conditions. She is actively involved in the development of modern preventive healthcare system for workers in Poland, and she's a long-standing member of the Polish Society of Occupational Medicine. She has served as its president since 2014, and she also represents Poland in the section of occupational medicine of the European Union of Medical Specialists. She is the author of hundreds of publications. So, Professor Jolanta, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here. I'm always very happy when there is a talk about workers that occupational medicine physician is also included, because as Mercedes introduced me, I'm occupational medicine physician, and I would like us to look at this, what is going on now at the workplaces, at modern technologies, from the point of view of health of employee, and also what can we do about it, what should we do to protect our workers in this very much changing world. So the first question I would like to ask is, modern technologies in the workplace, is it a friend of the worker or a foe? I have in mind what Sir Herbert Read said, that today we are experiencing the greatest changes since the Stone Age. I think that feeling of all of us is that everything is changing so much and so quickly that it's difficult to follow it. The older we are, it's more difficult to follow it. So what's going on at the workplace, which we know they are changing a lot. And in my opinion, we must also remember that in this demographic situation, when we have little and little, less and less working population, it's very important that we can get some tasks done by anybody else, like robots or like algorithms. So it's very good that some tasks like this dangerous one or this physically demanding can be done by robots and can be taken from the employees due to automatization at the workplace. So these are good sides. Apart from that, we know that teaching people has become much more easier when we have all these modern technologies. And it's much easier to prepare a worker to go into his workplace, to check if he is really prepared for unexpected situations, and how he will deal with this. So these are also advantages. So this education experiences, real-time feedback from this teaching and learning by employee is really great. Also, we can better monitor our employees at the workplace. We can check what's going on. We can check if all procedures that should be followed are really followed. And you know, it has two sides, because on one hand, it's good that we can follow it. On the other hand, the employee can feel monitored from all sides, and he can feel uneasy about it. But from the point of view of employer, it may be really useful to have all these things monitored. So, in fact, it should result in increased productivity, efficiency. It should result in better communication and at the workplace. However, and it was also said here for many times already, that if we automatize some jobs, if we have some tasks done by robots, of course, these people who are doing that are not needed anymore. And it's going to be a problem for them. And we all know that AI at the workplace, automatization at the workplace, means that all the simple tasks will be done by technology. So people who can do only the simple tasks are losing jobs. There is a website titled, "Will Robots Take My Job?" I encourage you to go and look at it. I checked mine. It's not so bad, but the best thing is to be a psychiatrist nowadays, because it's really difficult to replace you. So what about health? at the workplace. First of all, we never know with robots. It's relatively new anyway. So we can have unforeseen situation. We don't know how this proximity of robots with people will really work. Robots are never tired, so they can, the speed of the work can be too high for the employee. On the other hand, it means lack of social interactions at the workplace if one worker is left with all these automatized processes. We all know, and I think all of us don't like if we want to telephone for help to help desk and we get robot instead of human being there. So it's not easy to collaborate with them. It will be changing, but however, it's not so easy. So on one hand, we have these benefits like reduced physical workload, improved physical health, and we enhance skills of employees. But on the other hand, we have intensification of the work, we have monitoring of employees, and we have a kind of de-skilling. If you think for a moment, when we started using computers, our handwriting is not so well as it used to be, because we do that very rarely. And it's the same with all the other things. If they are done by robots, it means that you are not so good, and when there is no electricity, it may be a problem what we are doing. On one hand, we have potential for improvement in cognitive workload. We have better well-being of our employees. We can reduce time for different tasks which they are doing. On the other hand, they may feel they don't have control of the workplace tasks which are done. Many people, and it was also said by other speakers, many people fear of the technology. Many people don't know how to deal with them. All this techno-stresses, techno-anxiety, and techno-fatigue is really frequent and will be becoming more frequent in current years. So what should we do? What can we do? Employers must be very precise and very careful when implementing AI into workplace. They need to persuade ambassadors. They need to be checking all the time what's going on in the workplace to react very quickly, because many people will be afraid of it, and this internal communication and exchange of experiences will be crucial at such actions. So what's happening? At one hand, we have such a sense of all this changing going on very quickly. We have a sense of instability in a way. We don't feel comfortable with this very quickly changing world. Sometimes we feel absolutely lost in the face of technique. So, which is our way? Lifelong learning. It's a term which we hear very often now, and I think we realize, I'm not so young, so I know how much word has changed since I was a student, and it's difficult to think what will be in the next 10 or 20 years. However, we must educate ourselves, we must educate the others, and we must try to be very flexible in thinking and also in our skills. Will our brain manage to do so? Yes, it will. However, our brain needs a kind of reward. So if the worker is working, is adjusting to all these changes which are going on, if he is rewarded, if he knows that he is doing well, our brain neuroplasticity can adapt to it, and we can learn new skills, and we can really adjust to these new conditions. So looking from my point of view, from occupational health services, on one hand, we have plenty of advantages. What can AI be used for, like health monitoring, safety monitoring, reminding about different recommendations which we gave to our patient. We can better protect him from workplace hazards. We can encourage him to exercise. We can protect his musculoskeletal system. On the other hand, we must remember about all this impact on his health, and unfortunately, the impact is the biggest on mental health. For us, I'm saying unfortunately because it's this kind of health in which we have all difficulties how to deal with. It's not so easy from a patient's point of view to say, I have a problem. It's also not easy from occupational health services to help with it, but we must be very aware and very prepared, especially that we know that all our young people are also, even to bigger degree, have problems with mental health. There was a book last year, Anxious Generation, speaking about Z generation. The levels of anxiety in those young people are much higher than between us. And of course, they are much better prepared to deal with modern technologies, but on the other hand, their mental health really needs support, and we must have it in mind. So will we manage? It's a question to all of us if we are aware, and we will work very carefully. I hope we will. Please look what Stephen Hawking said, that it may be using AI may be our greatest achievement, but if we are not careful, maybe our last achievement. So I hope we will rather go what Bill Gates said, that it can be our best friend also at the workplace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dziękuję. And thank you for presenting some practical aspects on how to support employees in this challenging process of getting used to the new technologies. Our next speaker is Sarah Loriato. Sarah Loriato is responsible for the H Platform Europe's activities in the fields of employment, participation and active citizenship of older people. She monitors EU initiatives related to senior volunteering and lifelong learning. She also leads the working group on employment, participation and active citizenship. And in addition, Sarah coordinates H relations with the European Parliament and the Parliament Interest Group on intergenerational solidarity. Exactly. She joined H in 2022, having previously gained experience at the European Commission and Amnesty International. She holds a master's degree in political science and in international law. Sarah, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for having me here. I'm really pleased to be able to echo the voice of our members who represent all the people in Europe. So H Platform Europe, just a little background. It's an NGO, a network, the largest network, actually, European network, with more than 100 members that represent older people. So our members are older persons themselves, or they do represent older persons at national level. And our position, our objective is really to echo their voice at EU level and make sure that their recommendations are heard, and that their voices actually are heard. We are working on a different set of topics, including employment and sustainable and quality working lives, but not only. We're also working on social inclusion, on care, on dignity, on age-friendly environments. But here today I will focus on employment. I would like to introduce you to an age barometer, so a report that we have published in 2023. This report has been developed, draft, thanks to our members who collected inspiring practices in their member states that would enable workers to live sustainable and quality working lives until the end of their careers, and who support workers to leave the labor market due to personal reasons and willing, and not because of care duties or the lack of opportunities. But we see today that this is not the case. If you look at the employment rate at EU level, we see that 2/5 of persons aged between 55 and 64 do not work. If you look at this number closer, and if you look at employment rates for older women from this age range, it might be only around 40% in some countries. I'm thinking about Romania, or I think in Greece it's the same. Portugal is not so far, but it's really low. It means that when you're a woman and you're around 55, between 55 and 64, you are part or not of the 60% of older women who cannot continue being on the labor market. Another important data that I want to highlight is the long-term unemployment rate, which is the higher for this age range, meaning that there is obviously exclusion of older people on the labor market. And I'm not even talking about outside of the working age. I'm talking about the latest age range. And this exclusion actually, and my colleagues have said before, might lead to poverty. It's not just a question of not being on the labor market. It means no income or very low income, and it might lead to poverty and less chances to go back on the labor market. Yeah, that's it. How can we explain these figures? So with our members, we try to understand why we have so many people outside of the labor market. And we've highlighted 3 main reasons. The first one, which is according us at the root of any malfunction of aging on the labor market, is age discrimination and ageism. To give you an example, ageism on the labor market means that if you're looking for a job, your age might be a background of discrimination to go back on the labor market. It could be also not getting the projects that you want because your employer will think that you're not adaptable enough and you do not have the capacity to get the project. Linking to this, it might mean also that you do not have the same opportunities in terms of education, in terms of training, because we believe, I mean, we employers and maybe actually even governments believe that there is no point in investing in people at the end, let's say, of a career, which is a big mistake according to us. The second threat or challenges that older people might face on the labor market is the lack of support. Many older workers struggle to get training, as I said, or get job opportunities, and there is no incentives from governments to, or not enough from governments to employers or to companies to make sure that they can continue staying on the labor market. This is a huge mistake in our view, because it doesn't also give the opportunity to workers to stay on the labor market past the age of retirement, which is what many member states are looking for right now. But if we do not give the key to workers to be in a qualitative working environment, including education, there might be difficulty for us to continue working. And the last point would be non-adapted workplaces. So there is not enough accommodation made for people aging on in the workplace, and it includes, of course, the accommodations linked to digitalization. We believe that these barriers are here today, but they will have even a greater impact with the digital transition. If you look at ageism on the workplace, we would tend to think, and we already tend to think, that older workers, older people in general, do not have the capacity to adapt to new technologies. And so no need, again, to invest in older workers. And this creates actually a lot of prejudice within the team because there is less teamwork and an increased risk of exclusion. That creates also a digital divide in the workplace. Well, the lack of digital learning opportunities remain obvious, but also the fact that we do not maybe consider enough the high cost of the equipment to be digitalized. Thinking about remote work, not everyone has the means to be able to equip themselves at home. So this is an aspect that we need to consider. And a third point that might be important to consider, a third challenge that actually I'm talking about older people, but it concerns people of all ages, it's workplace stressors. So we've seen with my colleagues earlier that it increases anxiety and self-doubt. And there is a huge risk that we cannot keep pace. And that concerns also the youngest generation. I mean, artificial intelligence, digitalization, it goes so fast that we need really to be able to follow the rhythm to stay accountable on the labor market, let's say. So it's not only about older workers, it's about aging on the labor markets. When we look at the opportunities, we see that, of course, digital technologies can be a means to empower workers, both aging workers and older workers. It has been breaking down societal barriers and promoting inclusivity. For instance, if you look at technologies that are assistive, it could help people with disabilities to remain on the labor market, for instance, through screen readers, to voice recognition softwares, etc., etc. It could help in terms of automation of tasks, which is, of course, an improvement in terms of healthier working lives and improvement and reduction in physical efforts. But it could be also, I think we can also see digitalization as a way to fight ageism again, like, for instance, with the awareness campaign that we develop and the training that we give to employees and to employers, digitalization can help us to disseminate this kind of campaign awareness. So it's not all black. There are positive opportunities that we must grasp. Yeah, one more that my colleague actually has mentioned, but I think it's really important. When we talk about work-life integration, at EU level, we talk about work-life balance. Obviously, digitalization with remote work, it helped a lot in terms of balancing care duties, because it concerns a lot older workers when it comes to taking care of an older relatives or grandchildren. So it helped a lot to balance work and care duties and personal life. But for this and all the other opportunities that I mentioned, we really need a legislative framework, a strict one, and policy support to make sure that we, like, for instance, teleworkers do not do overtime of work, for instance. That is only an example, but it might be a means of intensification of the stress. I have two proposals to make to better work with digital technologies. They are not the only ones, but I think they are pretty important. The first one is yeah, it's this one. The first one is the investment in lifelong learning. We talked about it earlier, but I think it's really a key point. We said earlier that even the youngest of us need to be able to learn during their whole career, to be able to keep pace with the different changes. Actually, we believe at age that we really need a shift in the way we see education. It's not as we tend to leave it before education, then work, then retirement. The labor market today is really more flexible than this, and we need to find a way to both in our culture, but also in practical, to be able to get educated along our lives. I mean, even ourselves at age in the Secretariat, we are allowed to have trainings, but I see even myself, I'm into the work, and every year I'm like, I forgot to get a training this year and to get better in this or this. And we need to find a way to change that narrative, that culture, and change our habits, make it an habit, actually. Between older and youngest, an opportunity that is often mentioned is the creation of mentoring between the oldest and the youngest. And in terms of digitalization, we tend to think that the youngest could teach the oldest some basic things with digitalization. Also, something that is, I think, important in this aspect is the fact that, so we tend to think that older workers are not comfortable with digital technologies. That studies show that it tends to be wrong, but usually they learn by themselves. It means that there is some holes in the education in using digital tools. This is why we need something a bit more structured, and that becomes an habit. Sorry. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the last point, and I see that there are colleagues from the EU trade unions here. So we really believe that across sectors, that might be a bit more, collaboration could be interesting. We're actually working currently on the second edition of the Barometer on Employment. And we try to see how digital transition, but also the green transition, but also the labor shortages will have an impact on all the workers, and how they could grasp the different opportunities that exist. And we believe that one point that is super important, and I was discussing this with colleagues before, is the lack of data that we have today regarding older people. We tend to see them as an homogeneous group, while, it's not. They face different issues regarding of the different discrimination or life course that they had. They face different, they have different background, and so face different issues. We need better data, such as predictive analytics, to understand the skill gaps in different sectors, to be able to match unemployed people with the correct skills and the career opportunities that exist according to the prediction, the data prediction of labor shortages, for instance. We need to make sure that companies allocated time to education and continuous learning. And we need incentives, especially to support SMEs that we talked about earlier, that do not have maybe the means to support their workers. I would like to end with that quote from one of our members who really highlighted the importance of intergenerational solidarity, and who explained that, of course, young people often depend on their parents, so on older workers, during the period they are looking for a job. If the parents do not have a job at that time, it means that the youngest, the children, the youngest ones, will have to enter the labor market super fast while continuing their studies. So not improving the support for older workers might have an impact actually on the youngest one, and we really need to shift the narrative also in this idea that it's older workers against the youngest ones. Studies show that if older workers on the labor market have a good employment rate, it will increase also the youngest, the ones of the youngest. So I will just end saying that embracing the silver transformation means improving jobs prospects both for the youngest and the oldest. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sarah, for highlighting that changes and opportunities are for both old and younger generations, and that solidarity between generations is a must in these days. And our next and last speaker is Piotr Stronkowski. Sorry, my Polish is not so good. Not yet. He's an expert at the European Training Foundation and is the agency cooperating with EU neighboring countries. He has extensive experience in the areas of labour market, social inclusion and education. He was also employed in public administration, including as Deputy Director of the ESF Management Department at the Ministry of Regional Development and Ministry of Labour and Social Policy. He is graduated in social policy at the University of Warsaw, author of many publications, and he has cooperated with numerous non-governmental organizations and international ones, such as the World Bank or the OECD. Piotr,
thank
floor
you
is
very much.
yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So thank you for having me here. I represent today European Training Foundation, where I work. And today, maybe a few words about European Training Foundation, because I know it's a small EU agency. We are supervised by the DG Employment, so we are kind of the sister agency to EU-OSHA. But we are placed in Turin, in Italy. And our mandate is to work in the topic of skills, education and labor market. So this is more or less what we do. But what makes us slightly different from other agencies is that our geographical scope of work, because we work mostly with countries outside EU, not in EU, but outside EU. So with the EU partner countries, we work with the Eastern Partnership countries like Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, Western Balkans, Central Asia, and also Mediterranean. And today I would like to present a few findings of European Jobs and Skills Survey. It's quite a big survey. It was in 2021 was the second wave of the survey. It is done every 7 years, and it's the survey was created. The main organization agency responsible for the survey is CEDEFOP. ETF collaborated with the CEDEFOP. We tried to adapt the survey to the Western Balkan countries, and we did it in the Western Balkan countries. In EU, the sample size was 46,000 workers, because it is important to underline that the survey is focused on workers. And in the Western Balkans, we had almost about 6,000 respondents. So we focus on job description, so what task workers are engaged in their jobs, how they use the very different skills. But we didn't ask about the skills directly, but about the task, and on that basis we try to analyze the skills and adaptation to digital technologies, and also identification of skills gaps and opportunities. So today I would like to present only a small part of the survey, because the questionnaire is quite extensive, and I will focus on older workers. I mean those who are 55, 64. Saying that, I feel the reservation to saying that 55 workers are already older, because I'm aware that in today's world, 55 is not really older. You know? So, but for this, with this reservation, I will use this term, but of course, as Rafał even mentioned, that aging, you can consider that became a bit later. And yeah, so I think that it may be also interesting in the context of what Sarah just presented in the previous presentation, because when I started preparing this presentation, my idea was exactly the same, that I will discover more or less what Sarah presented, but the reality is not so simple and not so easygoing. And when I dive deeper, so I discovered that it's more nuanced. In the survey, we try to identify something which was called Digital Skills Intensity Index. So it is calculated on number of questions related to the usage of different digital technologies. So there are some workers who represent high skills, digital skills intensity, moderate, medium digital skills intensity, and low digital skills intensity, and others who do not use any PC, any digital tools at work at all. And when we look at the EU countries, we see there is the most workers use the moderate level, the skills. When we look at the differences between the younger and older generation, we see that in general, there is not much big difference. But when we look at this high skills intensity, we see that among the older workers, the percentage of high skills intensity is much lower as comparing to the younger. But when we look at the Western Balkans countries, so we see that the differences between the younger generation and the older generation are much more significant, much more visible. And also there is a huge percentage of people using only basic digital skills. So I think that sometimes it's useful to look at the other countries when we for benchmarking. When we look at the country level, here I presented percentage of employees, of workers using digital skills at the medium and high level. So we see huge differences between countries. So we have some countries like the Netherlands and Luxembourg, where almost over 60% of population of all the workers use digital tools and solutions at the medium and high level. And we have such countries like Kosovo, Albania, Macedonia, Bosnia, but also Cyprus. So where this percentage is definitely much lower. And but also we look at the difference, the gap between older and younger, trying to capture what is the discrimination of the older workers. And here is the difference. This graph presents the difference presented in the percentage points between the share of medium and high users of digital solution. And we see that in some countries, the gaps are really small. You see Iceland, Israel, Serbia, also Bulgaria, Germany, the gaps are really a few percentage points. Whereas in other countries like Cyprus, Malta, Albania, Ireland, also, the gaps are much bigger. Of course, those gaps are at a completely different level. But it seems to be quite interesting. And going to education and participation in training. So we also looked at the participation in any form of training in EU countries in the Western Balkans by the age. And we see in EU countries, of course, this is what Sarah mentioned before, there is a confirmation that the data that younger generation participate more often in any training than older generation of workers. But when we look at the digital training, the difference is not so big. It's 29% of younger generation and 25% of older generation. In the Western Balkans, the difference is much more significant. You can see this. So it shows us that some other factors may affect participation in digital training than the age itself. So we try to analyze what are the factors which contribute to participation in digital training. And when we look, for example, on this is education, level of education, and we see that people with higher education in all age group, these are data only for EU countries, in all age group participate much more often than people with lower education and medium level of education. The same observation we have when we analyze workers working in skilled occupation or manual occupation or performing more complex or more routine tasks. So the level of education seems to be much more stronger predictor of participation in digital training than the age itself. But it's not the only part of the story. When we also look at the users or not users of digital solutions, so those high users of digital solution participate in training, much more often than non-users. And again, there are no age differences, you know. So among the older population, if somebody is high intensity digital user, so his probability of participation in digital training is the same as the younger person highly using this digital solution. And we also looked at the introduction of new digital solution in the workplace, whether such a change took place or not. Again, it makes a big difference in terms of participation in digital training. So basically people, if there is an introduction of digital solution, people tend to participate in the digital training because they need to adapt to using it. And again, there are no age difference, no significant age difference. So we see that older people, when they have to, and they see the reason behind it, they tend to participate in digital training. And also when this is another graph, which is more describing the skills gap. So we ask to what extent the respondent, the worker, feels the need to improve his digital skills. And again, those who identify the biggest gaps in terms of digital skills, they participate much more often than those who do not present any gaps, any skills gaps in terms of digital skills. And again, the age difference is quite small. So we see, what we can see here is that age becomes a less important factor of development of digital skills. My assumption is that it is because of the cohort effort. Cohort effort is that those people who are now 55, 64, 20 years ago, they were 35, 44. So most of the professional life, they were exposed to digital skills and digital technologies. So for them, it's quite normal. I mean, working with the digital solution and knowledge that, okay, I have to invest in my skills. When we are talking about high-skilled workers, highly educated workers, those who already work with this digital solution. Whereas in those who do not have such a needs, they participate less often. People are quite rational animals, and they participate in training when they need, because participation in training is quite a lot of investment of time and money. So people really try to be practical and pragmatic. But definitely what we can see also that low and medium skilled workers, those less exposed to digital solution, they risk lagging behind or in terms of digital skills. So we have this divide on the labor market, but it is not by age probably, but other characteristic of the labor market. And what next? Next steps, the EU recently published Union for Skills. Probably you heard about it. And one of the main goals is to upskill and reskill for future-ready competitiveness. So we are very strong in EU now, focused on competitiveness. But the idea is to look for some solutions, some instruments which would somehow support participation in education training those who are lagging behind, like the individual learning account, micro-credential, community learning environments, skills guarantee, pilot, and so on, so on. So I think this is more for policy discussion, but it can be interesting tools to explore and try. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to respond to your questions.
Dziękuję. I get from your presentation the idea that the risk of being left behind is more linked to the educational level than to the aging process, which is something that maybe if you look at the rough figures, you wouldn't notice. So thank you very much for pinpointing that. Now we have about 15 minutes for questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, that way.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all the speakers for the very interesting presentations. I have one question to Mr. Stronkowski. I wanted to ask you to what extent another factor which may explain the involvement of workers in training is the fact that the training is guaranteed by the employer during working hours with a paid leave. So I wanted to know if in your very interesting research you took into consideration this dimension. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much for this question. And yeah, this survey, there is a question whether the training was supported by employer, and in general it has impact on participation in training. I don't remember whether I checked it for the age difference, so it's difficult to say to me whether it was significant or not. But definitely, yes. So support of employers for participation in the financial support, because it was that's this type of the question. But we also have to remember that this survey has some limitation. We only ask about any training in a year, and if any of those training has related to the digital skills. So we only ask about one training. So we should be aware that maybe if this minimal level, there is no big difference between older and younger, but maybe this is my question mark. Maybe we could find differences in terms of intensity of participation in training, how much more time younger and older generations spend on training. This is I know some anecdotal evidence that it may be the case, but I don't know. I haven't seen data. But again, this is maybe the idea for the next round of the survey.
Dziękuję. Any other question from the floor? Yes.
Hi. We heard a lot of really interesting aspects to take into account for the aging population, but not so much about ergonomics and the design of the job and the equipment to the needs of the individual and that diversity. In terms of the job, I mean, this morning we presented the data from ESENER showing that the highest reported risks by employers were repetitive movements and prolonged sitting. So we know that accumulates over time, more likely to result in musculoskeletal disorders amongst us when we get older. When it comes to equipment, I mean, we had the example here of the kind technician adapting the microphone to the needs of different body shapes. But when it comes to digital technology as well, we know that it becomes harder. I mean, you lose capacitance in your fingers, so touch screens are harder to operate. Visual acuity, dexterity, all decrease with age. I mean, there's an obligation surely there for employers to ensure that the equipment that is being provided in the workplace is adapted to our changing needs over time. Maybe from anyone in the panel would want to respond on that as a priority.
Thank you, William. Anyone wants to try to give an answer?
Yeah, does it work? Yeah. I don't know if it will be really complete, but This is one of the aspects we already worked on in the Barometer 2023, so the adaptation of the workplaces and the lack of involvement from companies, from employers and from governments, and actually from at the EU level as well, into adapting workplaces to aging, actually. And this is one of the issues we mentioned. In terms of digitalization, we've barely addressed it in this report, but it will be actually part of the second one, where we tend to focus on the construction sector and the care sector, specifically in regarding the job of nurses, and the how digital tools can be enabler for them to continue their work longer and in a qualitative way, but also how it needs to be framed to make sure that it doesn't create extra challenges and extra issues for them. But yeah, I do not have a concrete answer. It's in the making.
Anyone else want to? Yes.
Maybe I think that also I work a lot on the issue of disability, which is also somehow related to it. And I know that in many countries, for example, in Poland, there is a lot of effort invested in improving accessibility in different aspects of workplace, also digital accessibility. So I'm aware that there is a growing awareness of needs of adapting the digital tools to people with this, not only people with disabilities, but people with some needs of tools who can adapt to the conditions. So I think there is a growing awareness of it. Yeah. So of course there is a lot of discussion about the web standards and so on. This is only one example, of course. And I know that, again, probably it's anecdotal evidence, but I know that there is a lot of UX researchers who try to take it also into consideration, those aspects when they design the IT solutions for workers. So I wouldn't say that it's good, the situation is good, but at least there are some sides that the situation is improving.
Thank you. Sarah, you wanted to answer?
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to complete actually what we both said and invite you to have a look at the current OSHA campaign, so the EU Agency for Health and Safety at Work. So we're partnering.
Because he's.
Oh, you know. Okay, but it's really good. We find plenty of good research and plenty of good information in this campaign. So, congratulations.
It's even better because she didn't know you, so no. It's a complete sincere. Okay, anyone else from the audience want to ask anything? Otherwise, I've got a general question for all of you. I'm really interested in the practical side of all of what we are talking in these 2 days. So, which practices do you think that are needed in enterprises on national level, governmental level, etc., to keep all the workers with the capability to be continuing working in the workplaces and with a good quality? So any of you that want to give some practical hints for all of us, you're welcome.
I can start. I have one in mind. It is actually a good practice that our Belgian members reported. It's from an agreement that has been made in the private sector, and I think it's only for companies who have more than X number of employees. But they have the obligation of creating aging at work plan, which needs to include all the workers in the process of making measures and agreeing on measures dedicated to aging at work. And employees can offer some measure proposal to alleviate the burden on making sure that we can age well within the company. And if the employer wants to refuse the measure, it has to be motivated in writing, and they have to explain why the measure cannot be part of the plan. And we think it's really good because it really put the the employee at the center of the decision and make sure that the employee is part of the company also in terms of adaptation and new measures to make sure that sustainable work is part of the whole picture. It's part of the barometer as well.
Thank you. Anyone else?
We have
Jolanta.
We have a program in the National Health Program led by Ministry of Health, supporting aging workers to stay at the workplace. And in the first part, we had only some issues addressed to employers, how to teach them, how to prepare for aging worker. However, this time, at this stage, we also included occupational health professionals because in my experience, sometimes I am the first one to notice that somebody is about to lose his capacity for work. And even if now we will say he is fit for work, you know, in Poland there is this system that every employee is undergoes health checkup obligatory. If he is working for a company, he must have this statement on his fitness for work. So we noticed that we are the first one to see what something is going wrong. Anyway, it's a great discussion in Poland that we could be used for prophylactic because we also are the first to notice some health problems because people who think they are healthy, they don't go to a doctor to check their health. So there are many tasks for us. And very often I see that it will be difficult for this employee to survive till his retirement age. At first, we prepared our occupational medicine physician to give proper recommendations. Sometimes it's only medical intervention, but we also prepared our institute and regional occupational medicine centers to have consultation centers because such a worker can be referred there to get advice. Because if he needs to be retrained, if he needs to change his job, he needs some advice not to choose anything he can't, yes, because we have many health criteria, there are many recommendations what he can do, what he can't. And now in our project, we have such a consultation center in our institute, at the Institute of Occupational Medicine. So some employees are referred there. And for the next period, I would like all occupational physicians to be aware that they are the first one to notice problem and to at least give recommendation to a worker what should be done next. Because half of the problem is if it's a medical intervention and we just want somebody to take care of his illness, which is not always the case, we know that, but sometimes he needs retraining. We also need cooperation with employer, of course, because if we want to adapt the workplace and if we want to change something at his workplace or to move from one position to another, we need employer to that. So we do that in full cooperation, but we also want our physicians to give some recommendation about the other job and the direction of this retraining.
Dziękuję. Any more answers?
I think that maybe I would like to touch one more topic because I agree that all of these are important. But I remember what some time ago I looked at the data of the Polish Social Insurance Institution about the main reason behind the absence of outside the work, and the mental health is one of them when you take into consideration all of the forms of being absent. And and of course, when I think about mental health, of course, it's a very complicated issue, and there are many reasons behind it. But I think it was many times mentioned that also digitalization introduced a lot of workload, a lot of increasing pace of work, and feeling that the work is faster and faster. And to manage it properly, probably we need good managers, middle-level managers. But in the same time, in the business, we see a trend that middle-level managers, they disappear. Because many organizations, they are really convinced that this kind of the very flat organization are very effective. But it means also that a lot of responsibility are moved to employees. They have to be much more responsible for managing their work, for communicating with colleagues, for ensuring coordination and so on. It's a lot of work, a lot of burden on it. So I don't know, this is only my intuitions, you know, but I would like to, I think that this, I know that the quality of management definitely improve the quality of work and feeling safe and work and well-being in work. So the question is how improving the management practices can support all the workers, also managing this workload and pace of work and properly. So I think this is one of the aspects it can be further, you know, elaborated on.
Thank you. Sure, a healthy organization leads to a healthy work people. So that's clear, and that's one of the rules of health and safety. So it's perfect. Just one question to Rafał, if you don't mind. You have been talking about the role of the caregivers and the difficulties of those caregivers to also continue working. And what kind of, I don't know, actions could we take to help those people in that situation?
Okay, thank you for this question. Yes, it's very important to share the responsibility for this challenge. It's not only the responsibility for state and regulations, but also a responsibility for employers, staff, and some arrangements that can and practices that could be made in the level of workplace. So as I mentioned in my presentation, the one of tools is the remote telework, but not all workers in such situation are know their rights and the possibilities in this field, and they not always have equipment and conditions and skills to change the way they work from working in a workplace to working in remote arrangements. So sometimes providing support for such people in changing the way they work and maybe giving material support for arrangement of their home office. It could be the one of the directions. Also, working carers have difficulties with being overburdened. They have really little time for caring for themselves, and also the problems with caregivers' stress syndrome, depression, and other such mental problems. So digital technologies can be used, I think, to deliver some, for example, therapeutic or emotional also help in a distant way. So I think such things, and generally the policy in various levels oriented on combining caring duties and work are a few steps behind the policy oriented on combining work and caring for little children. So maybe we could take some inspirations from good practices in the field of reconciling caring for children and work to the experience for workers who care for their elderly relatives.
Yeah. Sure, that's one of the ways to see it. So let's copy for the things that we know that already works. Well, it's time to finish this session. Thank you very much to all the panelists.
So welcome after the break for our concluding plenary session number 3, entitled Building the Digital Future of OSH from Today's Learning to Tomorrow's Solutions. And we will begin by wrapping up what has been happening during the parallel sessions. And with regard to this, I would like to invite on stage Diana Gagliardi, an experienced. Please, Diana, please join me on stage. And a big hand for Diana. Diana is an experienced specialist in occupational health and safety, affiliated with INAIL, Istituto Nazionale Assicurazione contro gli Infortuni sul Lavoro, the Italian National Institute for Workplace Accident Insurance. Dr. Gagliardi also serves as the Secretary-General of the International Commission on Occupational Health and is the Director of the Collaborating Center for Occupational Health of the World Health Organization. Dr. Gagliardi, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
So, first of all, thank you, Eva, for introducing me. Thank you to the Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Protection and to CHIOP for inviting me to moderate this session. And I think you did a great job with this conference, very good organization, everything was flawless. So we can say you made it, well done. And also a very nice way to celebrate this important anniversary for your institute. So during the conference, we've had plenary sessions with a lot of thought-provoking and inspiring presentations, but there were also 4 parallel sessions. And of course, nobody of us has been able to follow what happened in each of them because we cannot follow more than one thing at one time. So this short wrap-up will be the opportunity for all of us to learn what has happened in these sessions. So I would like to invite on stage the moderators of these 4 parallel sessions, Jan-Michiel Musen, Paula Koff, Mercedes Tejedor, and Stefan Boni-Nielsen, to join me on stage and discuss together very quickly what happened during the session. Please. Okay, thank you. So we will follow probably the order of the sessions. So Jan-Michiel, the first session was about the OSH implications of new technologies and digitalization and the point of view of research, scientific research on these developments. So can you tell us something about what have been the key highlights or take-home messages from your session?
Yeah, sure. I think we had a really nice session with 5 researchers from BAuA member institutes, indeed. and all shedding lights on diverse aspects of what is happening when it comes to digital transformation, and ultimately it is developed into the use of AI, of course, and the advantages, the challenges, the threats, but also the opportunities. So it was not only on threats, but also on opportunities. That was really crucial. Also thinking of the OSH field as such, we can replace a lot of tasks, tedious tasks, with AI tools, as long as we realize that the output is relevant and of high quality. When I look at the Q&As and important things we discussed there was a discussion on and from Koen van Gulik from TNO. He said, guys, you working at research institutes in OSH, you need to recruit as soon as possible young people, preferably not older than 25 years, who have studied AI, who know everything about what AI is, because they can help you in innovating your research, your tools, thinking of risk assessment. We had this discussion yesterday. And then there was, of course, another question, where can we find those young researchers? And it's a matter, what we discussed, that you might start with students from these sort of universities or high schools, technical high schools, and then give them a good offer, of course, and try to keep them on board as a worker in your institute. Because this is a younger generation that works with generative AI, knows the tools, and knows this much better than, with all respect, the somewhat older generation in OSH research. And then we had a very interesting division between, let's say, a survey that was done in Finland and one in Germany. Although you cannot really compare these two surveys, there are a lot of hiccups, you cannot compare it. And the survey in Finland was already 2 years older than the one in Germany. But in Finland, it turned out that not so many workers were busy with AI or worried about AI, whereas in Germany, this was also focused on white-collar workers. There was a sort of explosive growth in the use of artificial intelligence in jobs, in workplaces, and also the opinion that it will really change my field of work substantially in the future. So that was quite a difference. And based on that, there was a discussion. It was Thomas from BAuA, who was also a moderator of this morning's session. He presented some results in Germany where, that's also the question I raised this morning, where it turned out that workers are really accelerating their use of AI tools. I think of ChatGPT, Copilot or whatever, without fully that their management is realizing that this is happening. They just produce, they fulfill their obligations, they write reports, they write notes, especially white-collar workers we are talking about. And the management doesn't have a clue what is happening, And based on this AI directive, they should, That is another important point. And then finally, my last remark is that it was from the Polish colleague from the CHOP, the Polish Institute, Andrzej, who said, well, all these data, all this collection of data already exists for decades. But the reason that AI develops so fast nowadays is just based on the power of computers. The computer power has exploded, and that's how we can really process all these data with the correct prompts. So I think that was also a really smart remark, not to be hysteric about AI. It was there already, but now it has speeded up a lot. So these were the main conclusions from our discussions in our session, Diana.
Okay. Thank you, Jan Michiel. Very precise but still synthetic report from your session. Paula, your session was about pros and cons of digital transformations. So can you tell us something about key messages that came out in positive and negative views around digital transformation?
Yes, thank you. I have to say this was a very interesting and informative session, and it gave a very good view of different perspectives. And yet they were still cross-cutting, and they intertwined, and they, in actual fact, in many ways supported each other. And one of the things that we learned was the importance that both the employers and the workers put on the European Social Partners Framework Agreement on Digitalisation. Both agreed that it provided an opportunity to explore all the possibilities, the advantages and the challenges. Both agreed that it should be embraced, and there was a need to be flexible with each other in order to successfully integrate the digital technology into workplaces. In doing this, the employers then highlighted that if you want to explore this, you need to know, or you need to look at how we do things, why we do things, what we do, the sort of organization that we have, the type of leadership that's in the organization, the culture that we want to develop, the trust, and to look at the workers' needs as well as the organizational needs, and to understand the expectation of workers in order that they feel comfortable with the integration of AI into their work routines. And supporting this general theme, it was pointed out that it was important to explain AI content, its use and its impact to different stakeholders, especially those stakeholders that had lower capacities, such as small to medium enterprises, and that supporting them in other ways as well through training for their employees, especially those that had high AI exposure. It was also a key point was made that the importance to closely monitor the changing world of AI, not just in terms of the risks maybe that it would pose, but also the potential to create more inclusive work environments. Interestingly enough, we also learned about the ability of digitalization to have a very strong impact on humans than their well-being, such as improving the well-being of people with brain disorders and diseases, and how AI can support the patient and clinicians, and to make those people who suffer these diseases, their life is much better as a result of AI. However, it was also recognized that there is a downside to that too, and that AI can have a negative impact on the brain health, such as through stress. And this needs to be addressed and managed going forward. And finally, it was noted that, that the impact on mental health is very important, and the ETUC were particularly strong in wanting a directive on this issue. So all in all, the four presentations reinforced each other, and I would just like to thank them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula, for this very comprehensive and precise report from your session. And now, Mercedes, you moderated the session, the parallel session on the potentials of silver economy. So can you tell us, I think all of us are interested here on this specific topic, what are the highlights and key messages from your session?
Thank you, Diana. Yes, I moderated the potential of silver economy session, and the first thing I mentioned was that all of us are interested in that, because either we are on that silver economy or we will be, with some luck. So the idea is that we had 4 presentations that introduced the topic from different perspectives. I'm only going to say some key messages from those presentations. The first one is that silver economy is thought about all the people as consumers, but we are much more than consumers. We want to be workers, and we are also caregivers. So one of that's one of the things. The second thing is that with an aging population, we need to keep those people working for longer. And working for longer in good conditions. It's not just a question of living longer, but it's living with a quality of life. One of the things that were mentioned this morning was that this silver generation is not an homogeneous group. There are differences in their needs, there are differences in the skills, in the capacities, in the way they look at their own lives. So that's something that has to be taken into account. It's not one fits all. We also mentioned that from the health and safety point of view, those people need support in general. All generations need support to deal with these rapid changes in technology. We are talking about digital technology, but all type of technology that are changing so rapidly that we have to get used to it. But as have been mentioned here, there are pros and cons. And one of the things that was mentioned in our session is that our brain has the flexibility and the capacity to learn new skills if we have the motivation that can come from inside, from the worker in this case, or from the organization. Another thing that was mentioned is that we need to adapt the workplaces so that any kind of worker can feel comfortable there. And we are talking about all types of diversity capacities. It's not just age, but there are other types of diversity that we have to accommodate in our workplaces. There are already inspiring practices of sustainable working life experiences that have been collected by one of the speakers this morning, the organization of one of the speakers this morning. And all of us can have a look at them and have some hints of what to do in our enterprises, society, government, etc. And also that there's a need for a legislative framework and some policy support, especially when we are talking about SMEs. SMEs have to adapt to these rapid changes, and we have to support them from the government side, but also from enterprises organization as well. And finally, there's something that has been repeatedly mentioned this morning, is that we need education, we need to reskill and upskill our workers in general. And one of the things that was mentioned this morning was that it's not just a question of age, it's a question of the main difference probably is about the individual and the main education of this individual, their motivation to keep updated with the rapid changes that we are suffering in this world. Let me say other thing that, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are not just consumers. We want to be also citizens in general. We want to work, and it's some workplace adaptation are needed in order to recognize the value of all the workers, allow them to contribute with their skills and experience and to the world of work. And we must think of about our policies and institutions and other type of activities that the society is getting older, and we have to be able to cope with that situation. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Mercedes. Thank you. And now, last but not least, Stefan, the topic of your session was OSHA management and new forms of work, which is an area where technological developments are surely bringing huge changes and huge challenges. So can you tell us something about the highlights and take-home messages from your session?
Sure, I'll do my best. First off, I think I want to say that AI is a tool. It's a tool that in the hands of the right people for the right purposes can do an immense amount of good, but in the hands of the wrong people with malicious intent, it can do a lot of things wrong. So I think that's worth remembering, and especially when it also comes to how to manage such a tool. Because one thing's for sure, digitalization, often powered by AI. I think somebody mentioned this morning that many of these digital solutions have AI embedded in them. AI is rarely sort of a standalone technology. Digitalization will change our economy. It will change our labor market. Goldman Sachs came out with a study a couple of years ago, and they estimated that about 2/3 of all jobs in the Western world will be affected by AI in one way or another. So basically, most industries, most jobs will be affected in one way or another. Some will vanish and disappear altogether. Some will be changed altogether because of this. So basically, all industries will change, all jobs will change, and also the composition of the labor market will change. We see that sort of the historical structure of employers and employees is changing. We see the emergence and proliferation of platform economy, of new forms of employment, again, that hold both positive and negative potentials in them. And one of the studies showed that there are a number of different OSH exposures from these different kinds of employment, or these different kinds of work, sorry. Then we had a presentation about the legal framework for how to sort of work at a policy level, at a regulatory level with AI. And basically, there's a bunch of different regulation out there at EU level. We have the OSH directive, we have the AI Act, we have the platform directive, we have the machinery directive, and we have GDPR. And sort of put together, this is a rather, currently as we stand, a rather fragmented and untested framework. So time will tell how this is going to work in reality and in a fast-changing reality. So one might speculate whether lawmakers will always be lacking a little bit behind the fast-changing world out there. I think another observation for me, and I started saying that, is that these AI-powered technologies carry a lot of potential also for OSH. They carry the potential to change things for the better or for the worse. Some examples are that in many, particularly in Southern Europe, heat exhaustion is becoming a big thing. Wearables is a way to actually alleviate some of these challenges and risks that comes with that. Algorithmic management can be used to actually, if you train it properly, you can actually create sustainable works that is not exhausting the worker. So there are many opportunities to do good, but there are also opportunities to do something bad with these technologies in terms of actually basically looking at, for instance, increasing productivity without taking into consideration the health and safety of the individual. We have an emerging body of research that focuses on the OSH consequences of digital technologies, but this strand of research is still in its infancy. And I think that it would be nice to see a more consolidated body of research on the positive and negative consequences of AI in the workplace. It was also mentioned that education is important, both in terms of upskilling and reskilling our workforce to handle the introduction of AI into the workplaces, but also just at a more general level, an AI literacy, because it's going to be such a prevalent technology in pretty much all industries. And then finally, my final observation is that that AI is not just a technology, it's part of a geopolitical race going on right now, where we see especially China and the US are investing massive amounts of millions and millions of euros or billions of euros into building these technologies and winning this arms race. Europe is lagging behind, but we need to do that, and we need to be conscious of how to use these technologies also on a more political level. And here today, I was introduced to the term digital sovereignty, which I think is a brilliant term, because this is really where Europe has to think about creating or using AI for its own purposes, and also with attention to the data it's trained on, what kind of outputs it delivers, and so on. So these are also some management issues if you want to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. And thank you to all my distinguished colleagues for reporting the outcomes and the key messages from their sessions. Now it's time to move to the very final part of this conference. So we leave the floor to Eva, who will introduce the next speakers for the closing part.
Thank you. Yes, so let's move on. And now I would like to welcome on stage Carlos Trindade, please join me, and Saila Rinne and Liviusz Laska. Please join me on stage. So let me first introduce our distinguished guests today for you. So let's start with Carlos. Carlos is a scholar and expert affiliated with the European Economic and Social Committee. He has been nominated directly by the European Economic and Social Committee as a speaker to present views on occupational safety and health challenges in the context of new technologies. Please welcome Carlos. Carlos. Saila Rinne is head of sector for policy and e-health, well-being and aging unit at the Directorate-General for Communications, Networks, Content and Technology, DG Connect of the European Commission. Her team works on policies and projects that support secure access to health data and promote innovative tools, services and products aimed at effective healthcare delivery and empowering citizens to manage their own health. Welcome. And Liviusz Laska, who is a Polish lawyer, attorney specializing in labor law, administrative law, electoral law, and the broader legal support of public institutions. He's also a sworn translator. Since December 2023, he has held the position of Director General at the Ministry of Family, Labour and Social Policy. Additionally, he serves as chairman of the Supervisory Board of the Social Insurance, the Polish National Social Insurance Institution called ZUS. Welcome. So we're ending the conference, so really the goal is to summarize and conclude and bring the last thoughts to on stage. So let's start with Carlos, who will talk about health and safety at work, current and future challenges in light of traditional and new technologies with a focus on NI. Please, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. In behalf of the European Economic and Social Committee, it's an honor for me to do here today to talk about something special important, the health and safety at work, in particular due to all the new technologies and artificial intelligence coming into play. I praise the Polish presidency for this initiative and to include the important topics of health and safety in its priorities. Our committee decided on last week an important opinion concerning this issue, and today I will inform you the main topics that we approved. However, I guess you already know I have a speech and a PowerPoint for do it, but As you can see, the both speech and PowerPoint are too long, and I am afraid that I don't have enough time for read the speech and use the PowerPoint. For example, the PowerPoint have 42 slides. It's not possible to do this. So, doing this, I will do the presentation of the 10 main topics of this opinion, and you can read the speech and see the PowerPoint when you have opportunity. Okay, topic 1, the facts. The new technologies, the digitalization, the robotization, the automatization, and the AI, doing the true revolution on the world where we living and working. This is a fact, and all our life and the life our family, friends, colleagues, countries around our world are in a total changement. First topic. Topics 2. These changes are building a new world, in particular on business and the work. For business, open new opportunities for work, and the workers bring a few opportunities, but also strong risks. We have several examples: the new business, the platform economy, the telework, the e-commerce, and so on. On the other hand, the robotization and automatization will give more productivity and competitiveness to companies. The key word today is opportunity, challenge, and risks. These are the key words of our time. Topic 3, one question. Are there more risks or more opportunities with AI? The position of our European Committee is clear. We need to catch the opportunities, but at the same time, we need to delete, reduce, and control the risks. It's a simultaneous process. Topic 4. The OSHA on the world has been and is a triumph in the last 30 years. All the indicators prove this. The directive prove this. The directive 89/391 was and is a truly tool to fight the to fight risks and at the work. We believe that the AE will bring a strong contribution to OSHA with more information, more prevention, and will reduce the dangerous task at work. Topic 5. However, AI brings new risks or raises the today risks. It means the physical, social risks, mental risks, heart disease, stress associated to the skilling and the insecurity due to the precarity. All these risks have been increased with AI. Topic 6. Nevertheless, facing the biggest opportunity of AI, there is an essential principle. In the AI system, the human beings have the control of the system. The fundamental rule is the human being control always the system. This is, in our opinion, a main question. In this framework, we have an important issue. It's necessary the algorithm be accessible. We demand that the algorithm be understood by all experts and not only by its makers. Topic 7. There is a strong link between AI and the challenge of lifelong training digitalization. It's necessary all workers, employees or self-employed, have opportunity to learn the development of digitalization, ensure their capacity to do well his task and fight the de-skilling. With this way, we are preventing the skillings and continue to do social cohesion. Topic 8. The principal challenge of the OSH is starting of current Directive 89/391, monitoring this development, study all the details, analyze all productive processes and new risks, in particular the psychosocial and mental risk. Topic 9. The introduction of AI in companies must come with social dialogue, with negotiation, with trade unions, and with a fundamental principle. The AI can't delete labor rights. With this way, we have a link with the AI and the continuity of the European social model. And topic 9, last one. With the OSH studies in companies and the research of OSH will show the needs of the updating of the current rules and of course, what new regulation or adaptation of current directive we need for do it. And finally, we need open mind for do it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope this opinion of European Economic and Social Committee give a good contribution to Polish presidency and the OSH action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos, and also thank you for applying hybrid learning for us and sharing both in person and your slides online that were made available. So we are like two channels, so we'll have them. Thank you. So thank you so much, and well, let's move on to Saila Rinne, who will present the future EU actions to ensure safety in the digital and AI era.
Thank you very much for the invitation to your event. I have been listening with great interest all the presentations that I've heard during the 2 days. I was here yesterday as well. Just to say that my unit in DG Connect, which is the technology DG, we are looking at digital transformation of health and care across the EU from the perspective of citizens, patients, companies, healthcare systems, and also healthcare staff. If I'm thinking of other groups of employees that we are looking at or trying to help, I would say, in addition to healthcare staff across the board, that would be AI developers, IT developers, data scientists, among others. Then, if we look at the political guidelines of the new Commission, I'm going to talk mostly about the AI, competitiveness, innovation. Also, security is very high on the agenda, but having listened to presentations here, I would also like to mention that preventive health, mental health, skills, and data-driven, lifelong and personalized approaches to longer, healthy lives are also very much priorities of the current Commission. Also, due to the fact that there is so much data out there, and now we have the computing capacity, we have the AI in place, and we can really be more preventive and have more lifelong approach and more personalized systems. The Commission recognized already long ago the transformative potential of technologies, and they will continue to be a priority in the coming years. And strengthening the European leadership in trustworthy AI is among the top priorities of the new Commission. Security and data protection are essential to ensure public trust and uptake of AI, and the Commission adopted in January this year one of its first actions was the action plan on cybersecurity for hospitals and healthcare providers to further enhance the measures to keep citizens' health data safe, and not only the health data, but to work on threat detection, preparedness, and crisis response in the healthcare sector. The aim is to provide tailored guidance, tools, services, and training for hospitals and healthcare providers, including the staff, of course. One thing which is also important in general for employees, if we are looking at cybersecurity, is the so-called cyber hygiene and being aware of cyber threats, because very often cyber incidents may happen due to non-knowledge or ignorance of certain things, how the systems work, or that you click the button and there's a virus that enters the whole computer system of your employer. So it's not only technical capacities, but also human capacities, which is very important part of also of the cyber security action plan for hospitals and healthcare providers. There's also going to be a public consultation opened very soon on the action plan, so we are asking more questions. What more could the Commission do on this field of cybersecurity for health? So I would invite to follow that and see when the consultation opens. There is also the revised eIDAS regulation with the European Digital Identity Wallet, and this provides a trusted framework for secure electronic identification. So I can prove that it's me connecting to the systems. This is also an important element. And the new Commission will also work towards a European data union, and this is about unlocking data from various sources, and it's a follow-up to the European data strategy that was implemented during the previous mandate of the Commission. And these data-related actions lay the foundation for fair sharing of data and building trustworthy AI solutions. There was also a competitiveness compass that was published in January, so the new Commission has been very effective and working quickly. This initiative is about providing a strategic framework to steer the Commission's work and to set a path for Europe to become the place where future technologies, services, and clean products are invented, manufactured, and put into the market. And one of the three pillars of this strategy is about closing the innovation gap in Europe. And there we see the new technologies, AI, quantum, biotech, robotics, that are going to be in the front line of this. Also, we want to create a friendly environment for scaling up young companies, and also to help larger companies to adopt AI. Promoting skills and quality jobs in these areas is vital for this strategy to work. And also simplifying the EU rules, laws, and funds is on the agenda, so that, for example, companies are able to navigate the regulatory pathways in order to have their products to the market more quickly. My DG is also in charge of the Digital Decade Policy Programme, which was launched already during the previous mandate of the Commission. And this is about human-centric, sustainable vision for digital society throughout this program to empower citizens and businesses. And I heard the word human-centric mentioned many times in the presentations earlier. So here we are looking at digital society and digital technologies that can bring us new ways to learn, entertain, work, explore, and fulfill ambitions. digital world should be based on European values where no one is left behind and everyone enjoys freedom, protection and fairness. This program allows the EU and the member states to work together to reach specific digital decade targets and its objectives. It lays down a mechanism for monitoring progress towards 2030, and every year the Commission publishes a report to take a stock of the progress of this program. These targets are measurable goals for each of the 4 areas: connectivity, digital skills, digital business, and digital public services. For example, in the area of skills, we see that the goal is to have 20 million employed as ICT specialists by 2030. There would be more graduates and a better gender balance across these employees. And also for every citizen, the goal is that 80% of adults can use tech for everyday tasks. And this, of course, could also help there be more digital savvy in the workplace. In the government sector, we see that the expectation is that the key public services would be 100% online by 2030. Also, in the digital health, we have set the target that everyone can access their own health records online by 2030. Of course, this is about the supply side, that the member state and the healthcare providers create the opportunity to access your health data online and in an interoperable manner, hopefully, also to boost the portability of your data. When you go to different healthcare providers, you could be able to show your data and decide who sees your data. And then also the target is that everyone can use the e-identification. And this Digital Decade Policy Programme is underpinned by the Digital Europe programme that was already presented a bit, or quite very nicely by Marina Zanchi earlier today. So just to say that this programme provides strategic funding to projects in key capacity areas such as supercomputing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, advanced digital skills, and ensuring a wide use of digital technologies across the economy and society. It has an overall budget of over 8.1 billion euros, and the latest work programme, which is for years 2025, 6 and 7, was published last Friday, so it's out there. If you are interested, have a look what's there. There are also health-related funding and skills-related funding including. It supports industry, small and medium-sized enterprises and public administration in their digital transformation, with a reinforced network of European digital innovation hubs that are located in member states and regions. Then when we look at the regulatory framework, when it comes to the data side, we have a set of regulations and acts that were mostly put forward by the previous Commission, and now it's time to start implementing them and making the links across these different regulations. One is, so on the data side, I already mentioned the data strategy, and we have the European Health Data Space Regulation, which is a very important piece of regulation in order to unlock data and empower citizens and patients to have access to their own data and to reuse health data for research, innovation, and public policies. Of course, the General Data Protection Regulation has been there already quite a while, but it continues to apply. EHDS makes it a bit easier to reuse health data. That was one of its objectives. And then when we look at the security and trust area, there we have the Cyber Resilience Act and Cybersecurity Act and NIS2 directive, plus the eIDAS regulation. And now, as I said, now is time in the current mandate to implement them properly, efficiently, and to make sure that the interplay between these different regulations is there. I saw this pyramid at least 3 times in the different presentations about the AI Act, and of course AI Act is also part of this, this bigger package with data, cybersecurity also, like medical device regulation is very relevant, and it's part of this landscape where the interplay between the different elements need to be reinforced. So on the AI Act, I just wanted to add maybe 2 things. It's the first regulation on AI worldwide. It is innovation friendly in the sense that the high-risk applications need documentation and certain steps to be taken, but at the same time, for the minimal risk applications or limited risk applications, companies are free to put them forward to the market. So it creates legal clarity and legal certainty for companies, and we see this as a competitiveness booster also for Europe. Then looking at the activities on AI, last year the Commission published an AI innovation package which included the so-called Gen AI for EU initiative, which earmarked funding of 500 million euros until 2027. It will stimulate the uptake of Gen AI in key sectors of the society through novel use cases and emerging applications. The Commission has recently launched also the concept of AI factories, where we are bringing supercomputing power accessible for startups, researchers and industry, with funding of 2 billion euros to boost AI applications across all strategic sectors and society. And the very latest development is the Invest AI initiative that will mobilize 200 billion for investment in AI, including a new European fund of 20 billion for AI gigafactories, and this is the next step of the AI factories. And these are specialized supercomputers specialized in training the most complex, very large AI models, and these gigafactories will be the largest public-private partnership in the world for the development of trustworthy AI. They will serve the European model of cooperative open innovation with the focus on complex industrial and mission-critical applications, and access to high-quality data will be key enabler of all these initiatives. So without high-quality data, there is no high-quality AI. And looking at the data side, interoperability, common rules and standards among the different data spaces and within the different data spaces is really essential to achieve the critical mass of data needed for all these AI solutions. Then the Apply AI strategy was announced by the new Commission in collaboration with member states, industry and civil society, and it will be the blueprint for making Europe an AI continent. And the main objectives of this strategy are to foster the integration of AI technologies into EU's most strategic sectors, with the aim of unlocking the potential of innovation and enabling European companies to be global frontrunners, and also to increase the level of skills in the Union and increase the quality of services in the public sector. All these AI-related initiatives, actions will be further explained in the upcoming AI Continent Action Plan, which will be a comprehensive plan to make sure that AI delivers the competitiveness gains that Europe needs. So I would like to invite you to stay tuned for the next steps of this exciting journey towards making Europe the AI continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Saila. And I wish we had time for questions and discussion, but we do not have that time. So please feel free to reach out to Saila during lunch. And now I would like to invite on stage, over there, Liviu Szlaska for concluding remarks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I asked ChatGPT if it is appropriate to close conference in Polish. And because we are on the national stadium, he allowed me, so I will speak Polish. Kończąc naszą dwudniową konferencję Budowanie cyfrowej przyszłości w świecie BKP, pragnę podziękować wszystkim Państwu za przybycie na naszą konferencję, wszystkim prelegentom, panelistom, moderatorom, badaczom oraz partnerom społecznym, którzy uczestniczą w naszej konferencji. Przez ostatnie 2 dni wspólnie zastanawialiśmy się, jak transformacja cyfrowa zmienia świat pracy i co najważniejsze, jak zapewnić, aby bezpieczeństwo i higiena pracy pozostały fundamentem tej przemiany. Pozwólcie Państwo, że podsumuję kilka kluczowych wniosków płynących z naszej konferencji. Rozpoczęliśmy od podstawowego pytania: jak zbudować cyfrową przyszłość, która będzie nie tylko efektywna, ale także etyczna, inkluzywna i bezpieczna. Podczas sesji otwierającej przypomniano nam, że cyfryzacja, choć nieunikniona, musi być prowadzona w oparciu o silne ramy prawne i zasady etyczne. Usłyszeliśmy o znaczeniu współtworzenia rozwiązań technologicznych z myślą o pracownikach, a nie tylko dla nich. W sesjach poświęconych badaniom naukowym dostrzegliśmy ogromną rolę nauki w pomaganiu nam w zrozumieniu i kształtowaniu tych zmian. Wkład sieci PEROSZ oraz międzynarodowych naukowców pokazał nam, jak sztuczna inteligencja, technologie imersyjne oraz ergonomia cyfrowa mogą wspierać bezpieczeństwo pracy, o ile zostaną właściwie wykorzystane. Jednocześnie przypomniano nam, że technologia nigdy nie jest neutralna. W dyskusjach o szansach i wyzwaniach cyfryzacji stało się jasne, że musimy znaleźć równowagę. Owszem, innowacje mogą zwiększać efektywność, ale musimy również być czujni na nowe zagrożenia, od stronniczości algorytmów po wpływ na zdrowie psychiczne pracowników. Wpływ cyfryzacji na rynek pracy jest już wyraźnie widoczny. Praca zdalna, automatyzacja czy praca platformowa zmieniają samą istotę pracy. Usłyszeliśmy mocne głosy zarówno ze strony pracodawców, pracowników, związków zawodowych. Wszyscy zgodzili się, że ta transformacja musi być sprawiedliwa, uczciwa i inkluzywna. Cieszę się, że poświęciliśmy uwagę srebrnej gospodarce, aspektowi kluczowemu, ale często pomijanemu. Jeśli chcemy zapewnić trwałe i wysokiej jakości warunki pracy, musimy wyposażyć starszych pracowników w narzędzia i pewność siebie, które pozwolą im odnaleźć się w świecie cyfrowym. Analizując nowe formy pracy, zobaczyliśmy, że nasze tradycyjne modele BHP są poddawane próbie. Praca zdalna, zarządzanie algorytmiczne i decyzje podejmowane przez sztuczną inteligencję rodzą złożone pytania dotyczące odpowiedzialności, przejrzystości i dobrostanu pracowników. Podczas naszej ostatniej sesji spojrzeliśmy w przyszłość. Przedstawiono nam kolejne kroki, nowe inicjatywy Komisji Europejskiej, narzędzia i działania regulacyjne, które będą kształtować cyfrową przyszłość bezpieczeństwa i higieny pracy. A więc co dalej? Wierzę, że opuszczamy konferencję z poczuciem wspólnej odpowiedzialności. Przyszłość cyfrowa nie jest czymś, co dzieje się poza nami. To my ją tworzymy. Każdy z nas. Rządy, naukowcy, przedsiębiorstwa, związki zawodowe i społeczeństwo obywatelskie. Każdy ma w tym swój udział. Musimy nadal współpracować ponad granicami i sektorami, aby cyfrowe innowacje wspierały godność człowieka, chroniły bezpieczeństwo pracowników i promowały sprawiedliwość. Kończąc tą konferencję, chciałbym raz jeszcze serdecznie podziękować wszystkim, którzy przyczynili się do jej sukcesu. Naszym znakomitym prelegentom, moderatorom, zespołowi organizacyjnemu z Centralnego Instytutu Ochrony Pracy Państwowego Instytutu Badawczego na czele z dyrektor Agnieszką Szczygielską, wspaniałemu zespołowi z Ministerstwa Rodziny, Pracy i Polityki Społecznej, a także wam wszystkim uczestnikom. Szczególne podziękowania kieruję dla naszej głównej moderator, której wyjątkowe umiejętności prowadzenia debaty oraz czujność przyczyniły się do tego, że nasze wydarzenie stało się szczególnie wartościowe. Razem położyliśmy fundamenty pod przyszłość pracy, która będzie nie tylko inteligentna, ale także bezpieczna, sprawiedliwa i ludzka. Gdyż godna praca to bezpieczna praca. Dziękuję Państwu.
Thank you so much. So I guess it's time to end the conference. I just want to say one more thought in the end, that my friends from other continents are telling me how privileged I am that I was born in Europe. And it's important to remember that we are privileged. And at the same time, privilege stands with responsibility, and this responsibility for safety, fairness, and justice, and inclusiveness in the implementation of digital enhancement for the citizen of Europe and for the citizens of the world through Europe's impact on the world. So dear Europe, I want to say, keep being yourself and keep going. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to distinguished guests, to all the distinguished guests who took part in the panels. Thank you for being with us in person. Thank you for being with us online. Thank you for the organizers for excellent programming and organization. My name is Eva Stelmasiak, and it's been my pleasure to be your conference host for the last 2 days. I wish you a great lunch. I wish you safe travels back home, and please stay safe and healthy. Thank you.